All right, good evening, everyone. The regular business meeting of the Independent School District 279 School Board is called to order at 6:03 p.m. on November 16th, 2021. This regular business meeting of the Osseo School Board is being conducted in person. This meeting can be monitored electronically by streaming online from the district website. An archived recording of tonight's meeting will also be available on the district website. Seated in front of you this evening from my left to your right, Director Tamara Grady.
Hello.
Director Thomas Brooks.
Here.
Director Jackie Mosqueda-Jones. Myself, Kelsey Dawson-Walton. Director Tanya Simons.
Good evening.
And Director Heather Douglas.
Hello.
Superintendent Corey McIntyre and General Counsel Tim Palmatier are also present in the boardroom, along with our student school board representatives. We have Cal Thorson from Maple Grove Senior High, Faith Sua from Osseo Senior High, Hanaya Damney from Park Center Senior High. And unfortunately, Nadia Abdullah from the OALC could not be here tonight. The superintendent's cabinet and other district administrators are seated in another conference room with a live stream of this meeting being shown on a monitor. Individuals will come into the boardroom as needed. So for those who can, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Director Douglas, will you please lead us?
Oh, sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Board members, in front of you is the agenda. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? All right. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as printed?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Motion by Director Grady, seconded by Director Simons to accept the printed agenda. Any discussion? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right. Motion passes 6-0. The next agenda item is audience opportunity to address the school board. I'm going to review some of the guidelines for that to speak to the board. During audience opportunity to address the school board, I will call on each speaker who has submitted a speaker card. We ask that speakers keep their comments to 3 minutes. The board does not take action or discuss matters during this portion of the meeting. Speakers may be referred to the superintendent or staff if follow-up is necessary. The complete guidelines for public participation are provided on the meeting materials table and on the school board section of the district website. So when I call your name, please come to the microphone, state your name, topic, and also state whether or not you are a district resident. All right. So first up, we have Krista Chapa.
Can I take this off? Yeah. Hi, my name's Krista Chapa. I'm a parent of scholars in our school district. Let me make my message very clear. It's time to unmask our children, your children, our kids. It is not March of 2020 anymore. We have learned a lot. We know that it's time to take them off our children. The CDC just published that kids ages 1 to 14 are more likely to die from drowning, car accidents, cancer, and the flu than they are from COVID. I think we all know that by now. Kids will get the virus. Adults will get the virus. Vaccinated will get the virus. Unvaccinated will get the virus. It's a virus. We choose not to live in fear. I know I've read some documents from the school district, and others want to continue masking because COVID cases in the district are still rising. But let's try and make sense of this. Let's break this down. The entire school year, what have we been doing? Everyone's been required to wear masks, yet case numbers are going up. So let's draw a conclusion. Masking in our schools does not mitigate the spread of the virus. It's time to let parents make the medical choice to require their children to wear masks or not to wear masks. I was intending to keep my message general, but not anymore. This is personal. This is personal to my family. It's personal to my scholars. I am taking this as a personal message tonight. My daughter was supposed to be here, but she's at dance and she's running late. So my daughter, Josie, she's 4 years old. You would want to see her. You would want to see this face who wants this mask off her face and wants to go back to school. I will not let her go to school as a speech student wearing a mask. It's not safe. It's not right. It is not the things that she needs to be in school. She is there to learn, to grow, to speak, and that is not safe for her. She's been very disappointed every day. She sees any school that looks like a building that looks like a school. She cries. She wants to go back. It was a service that was good for her, that was very helpful, and she is just devastated. This is heartbreaking for me as a parent, but I refuse to send her when she's not getting the service she needs. That is not the service she needs. This needs to change. Now, parents have the choice to vaccinate their children. Let's say that again. Parents have the choice to vaccinate their children. Now we want the choice to decide whether our children wear masks or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Kyla Chapa.
Hi, I'm Kyla Chapa. I am in 4th grade and I go to Basswood Elementary. I was here in August to speak. It is a good thing and a bad thing that I'm here today. But let's start with the good. The good thing for me to be here today is that I get to stand up for my family and my friends. Now the bad news. Because I honestly can't believe that our schools are still saying this. My family and my friends in other places are not masked. So why are we? I can be free, but I can't. And here is some more bad. I get up every morning not wanting to go to school, masked, only because I'm masked. I get stomach pain. I get stomach pain from it. I get a sore throat, and I need more and more water. Sometimes I even get runny noses. It's gross because it always gets in my mask, and I have to do so much work just to wipe it off and stuff. It's gross because I always have to have a runny nose like every month because I have to do it in a mask. Please help me and my sister and my friends with this. Thank you, and have a great night.
Thank you, Kyla. Next is Emily Seren. Sorry, I can't tell if it's a V or a R.
Oh, I have handouts.
Okay.
I'm a visual learner. My name's Emily Sevens. I'm an 8th grade science teacher at Maple Grove Middle School. It's my 7th year in the district at Maple Grove Middle School. I'd like to begin by saying that I enjoy my job, my colleagues, my students, and my administration team. However, there are several issues I would like to bring to light that are greatly affecting my ability to perform my job at the best of my abilities. To say that this year has been a struggle is a huge understatement. I think as teachers, we expected that this year would be at least a little bit back to normal and maybe better than last year. But in fact, it's been significantly worse. Our school lost 11 teachers this year, in part because the district didn't deem our middle school model worth the cost, and in part because enrollment numbers were projected to be lower. In fact, as history has shown over and over, the decreasement in enrollment was insignificant. Numbers are only 106 students fewer than they were in the 2018-2019 school year. Yet we lost 11 teachers. The number of science scholars that I work with has gone up from 134 students in 2018 to 177 students. I also have an advisory class that brings my total student contact up to 205 students. Because the district isn't willing to pay for the middle school model and the number of teachers necessary to implement it, we no longer are able to team, which in my opinion is the worst change so far. In the past, we've worked as a collaborative group of teachers to share students and all the changes that come with them. We're able to recognize and address mental health, dysregulated behavior, and academic challenges that our students face. Now students are falling through the cracks, and teachers are breaking under the workload. Furthermore, the decision was made to cut one of our SMS administration professionals, whose primary job is to manage student behaviors. The district doesn't provide funding for more than one SMS for Maple Grove Middle School, and we have over 1,700 students. Maple Grove Middle School administration has always had to make hard choices about what to do with any supplemental funds. And often that money is used to pay for another SMS because the district doesn't deem it necessary. What a discouraging choice to make. Why is Maple Grove Middle School administration forced to choose between appropriate staffing and enrichment programming? Teachers are dealing with burnout and demoralization. The behavior in the school is unlike anything I've seen in my teaching career. I get told on a daily basis to F off due to asking students to wear their masks correctly. I have had my personal property stolen and damaged and had a student ask me extremely inappropriate questions for TikTok challenges. Students have confessed that they run out of class when the bell rings and go straight to their next class because they're scared of the behavior in the hallways. I spend my weekends and night grading papers and creating curriculum that keeps my students engaged and motivated. Last night, I got water on the paper I was grading at my daughter's swim meet. Let's say that I'm grading an assignment that takes 2 minutes to grade. I have 177 students. That's 5.9 hours of grading. Excellent teachers across the district are actively seeking other opportunities outside of education. We need teaming, we need more staff, we need support. So in closing, I invite you, as a school board, as a superintendent, and as the union, to please come and witness on what we deal with on a daily basis. And not in work clothes, in street clothes, and be a part of this with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Kirsten Block.
First, I'd like to say, Emily, I'm sorry you're going through that. That's very sad. Sorry. I gave you guys each a chart. It's in front of you. Audience, if you like that chart, it was on the table. I think they've all been taken up. But over the last several days, I've gone over the numbers of the COVID cases through the beginning of the school year for mass and unmasked schools. The unmasked are the ones that are optional. And some of those unmasked schools, the elementary schools required, but not the high school. So as you look at this chart, I have schools like Osseo, Wayzata, Robbinsdale, Eden Prairie, Elk River, St. Michael, Buffalo, and Rockford. The blue on the chart, the blue schools are the ones that require masks. The purple, the elementary schools, but not the high school. And the green, it's optional. So as you can see, from all these schools, from September of this year to now, that there's no statistical difference, significant statistical difference between those COVID cases of the masked versus the unmasked. But we all know there's significant negative consequences for these children to have to wear these masks. There was even a study done on little infants born before COVID and how the significance of masks affected those children. And their IQ went down by almost 30% because they couldn't see faces. They couldn't see faces. I mean, just a smile from a teacher. It's so sad that we are doing this to our kids. It needs to stop. There's a private school in the area that has gained over 250 students because of the mask mandates. And their number is below 1% of COVID cases. Their highest numbers was at week 5, and they started the middle of August. So I ask you, please, there are significant school districts in this area
and school boards that made a decision not to mask. You say you go by CDC guidelines. Are you going to let CDC make your decisions? Or are you guys going to make those decisions? That's why you're hired. Not for the union, not for the CDC, not for the federal government. You're elected here to represent the kids and your teachers. So please, I ask you, stop this. Stop. It is hurting our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Tobin Johnson, next.
Thank you for your time, and certainly to the teachers in the room, thank you for your service. I'm going to talk about the mask policy, but I'm going to take a very different angle from what you've already heard. This is really what I've learned about the decision-making process since that August special school board meeting. And really, I'm talking to my fellow Minnesota Nice parents, the ones that fall in line and are asked, the ones that fall in line when asked to do so for the greater good. I want to make sure they understand the process and why the mask mandate is likely getting extended until at least January 31st, 2022, as we'll find out later in this meeting. And actually, breaking news, the mask mandate is not going away January 31st or anytime soon. As others have already said, it will be here as long as the bureaucrats in DC and their minions at the CDC say so. Why is that? At the August 20th special school board meeting, in the mask mandate that was proposed and adopted, we were told we need to follow the science. What we weren't told about is that we need to follow the money. The liberal New York Times writer David Zwig reports that the CDC's own study published this past May contradicts their mask recommendation for students. They looked at 90,000 students in Georgia with mask policies ranging from very strict to very lax. And they found two mitigation strategies to be effective at slowing the spread of COVID-19. One was improving ventilation with more fresh air, and two was masking the adults in the room. This was known before that August board meeting. Masking kids, there was no statistical benefit impacting rising or falling cases. Okay, so why do we need to follow the money then? Well, at that August board meeting, about masks, there was no talk about the financial incentives tied to adopting a masking policy. Our district is set to receive at least $37,931,373 in COVID relief funds from DC. So let me say that again, at least $37,931,373 in COVID relief funds that can be spent on things like sports facilities or an urban bird sanctuary like was done in Wisconsin and Texas, respectively. I think there's a latitude to give combat pay to these teachers as well. So what's the catch? What we have to do what the big pharma-controlled bureaucrats at the CDC tell us to do. So let's keep following the money. Those dollars won't all be here by January 31st of 2022,
30 seconds remaining.
when the mask mandate could hypothetically end. Those funds won't be received in full until September 30th, 2024. So if you think the mask mandate could go away as soon as the metrics improve, you're not being told the full story. What happens next when you follow the money? Well, we as parents have lost the choice to mask our kids in this district. The next choice we'll lose, like they did in California, is whether or not we should vaccinate our young children, who, by the way, have more risk of negative outcomes from the seasonal flu than they do from COVID-19. This assault on our kids isn't about science, it's about the money, and I look forward to your response.
Thank you. And our final speaker is Angel Bolera.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak as a representative of the Fair Oaks Elementary School. I'm a resource special education teacher there. We are a pre-K through 5th grade building. We have Title I, EL, 2 Connect classrooms, and resource special education in our building. And I'm here tonight to talk about the impact the sub shortage is having on us and our students at Fair Oaks. Daily since the first day of school, we have not had one day where all staff members are present. The worst day, the highest number of absences, was 17 staff members out, and we were in need of 8 subs. So creatively and collectively as a staff at Fair Oaks, we have tried to deal with this at a building level, and it's not enough. We are covering each other's classrooms, we are combining children, we are rearranging schedules to make sure that student needs are being met. And they are at the forefront, and it's not enough. We are seriously grateful to the subs who pick up the jobs, and I gotta give a special shout out to Roberta Fitzsimmons and Sarah Gladen, who have repeatedly picked up sub jobs in our building, and we're grateful for anyone that comes and takes it on. The impact is a daily loss of prep time in our EL staff members, our Connect teachers, our resource teachers, our classroom teachers. And I don't mean that every single staff member is losing their prep time every day, but I am telling you that every day there are multiple staff members who are losing their prep time to make sure that there is coverage, appropriate coverage and instruction in classrooms. We have had a shortage in our EL program, we've had a shortage in our Connect program, and we have staff who are planning and rearranging schedules, and it is at a loss of their own lunchtime, prep time, evaluation testing time. We are pulling people from other classrooms and other programs to try to support our students and meet their needs.
30 seconds remaining.
Teachers are subbing for other teachers during their lunchtime and prep time. EL teachers get pulled to sub in classrooms, which means that students will miss out on daily language services that they are legally entitled to. At Fair Oaks, we are collaborating as a unified team to try and address the issue of the sub shortage at a building level, though our students are impacted because resources are being pulled from them just so the school can function. And staff are exhausted, frustrated, and stressed out. The highest need students in our building are not being provided with equitable instruction they deserve and have a right to because of unfilled absences that team members are trying to cover or plan for. Collectively, morale is slowly being depleted and staff mental health is suffering. This is not sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming to speak, and Kyla, thank you for coming back again. We definitely take to heart, and we are very much listening to each and every one of you. I just want you to know that, and thank you for being here tonight. Our next agenda item is student school board representatives reports. So I'm going to call in each student rep to provide their report, and then after we will, our board can ask some questions if there are any. All right, so first is Hanaya from Park Center.
All right, so my name is Hanaya, and I'm a student representative for Park Center. And some updates for the end of the try are, I really feel like that Park Center has started to have more like classes that help with stress, because at the beginning of the year I was really stressed, but when I go to ceramics, I feel like it helps me, especially to have my hands on something, and I feel like it releases some stress and extra tension. Also, Park Center, our sports have been doing really good, and I'm really proud. Like, our teams have really showed out and proved everyone. Like, Our boys football and boys soccer were runner-up in sections. Adaptive soccer will be competing in state this Friday, and cheer qualified for nationals, and they got first at the regional, so I'm very proud. Park Center. Yeah.
Thank you. Faith.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm a senior at Osseo Senior High School, and right now we're just wrapping the trimester up with the trimester ending in like 2 weeks. Everybody's just trying to get their work done and just make sure they're at where they want to be at. Seniors at the school right now, including myself, we're submitting our college admissions, scholarship, FAFSA, and juniors right now are prepping for their ACT in April. It's like a really long process. On the sports, 3 country runners made state. Jules Davis, Lex Davis, and Kay Savnick, and Lex and Kate earned all-state honors. Our volleyball team finished 3rd in the West Division of the Northwest Suburban Conference. Our football team finished 4-4 in the 6A football division. And then the district offensive lineman of the year was Osceo's junior Jerome Williams, who's also a D1 athlete now. Our marching band was up to 70 participants this fall, and then the tennis team had a great season on their new courts. And right now we're just, we're getting back in the motion of school. It actually feels like school now. Yeah, it's like we're back almost close to normal.
Thank you. Cal.
Hi, I'm Cal Thorson. I'm a senior at Maple Grove Senior High. I'd just like to share some highlights from Maple Grove the past 2 weeks. So a big one is our football team. They won against Woodbury in the quarterfinals in state. So they're going to be playing at US Bank Stadium against Eden Prairie, which I'm sure any of you that follow football know is a big team to beat. Our fall musical debuted, Jesus Christ Superstar. That's airing at Maple Grove right now. You can see it this weekend. I encourage you all to go and see it. It's a great play. We've got some great, talented people at Maple Grove. We also held Halloween week a couple weeks ago as students competed in costume contests during lunch and all wore their costumes to school. It was very interesting to see the least. And then I'd also like to highlight one program that Maple Grove has that I think is very, it's a good opportunity for students to get work done. We have a Crimson Hour on Tuesdays and Thursdays each week. It's a great opportunity for students to catch up on missing work. They're able to meet with teachers. They're also able to just take the time to take a break from school and kind of just hang out with their friends. So that's a great opportunity that we have at Maple Grove that I think just kind of makes the school week feel a lot shorter. Thank you.
So for those of you who are maybe new or haven't watched the meeting, our student school board reps this is only their 2nd meeting that we've had them here with us. And as Director Douglas has said, it's something that I think the board, you have the longest tenure on the board, has always talked about. So it's really exciting. And, our students, we know how busy your lives are. And so we're really, we're so glad you're here and you're able to talk about your experiences, and they work to review the board meeting packet in advance of the meeting and are prepared to answer questions from the board, and we can take the opportunity to ask them any, some questions related to the agenda, seek any input. And so with that, I will open it up to any of my colleagues if anybody has any questions or wants some insight or any input from our school board reps, school board student reps. No?
I'll ask a question. So as you as board representative students observed tonight, one of the most important things of the school board is to hear from all stakeholders, especially directly from stakeholders with challenging things that we need to hear and know about. As you think about your environments at your school, positive or negative, are there things that this board needs to hear from you this evening as you represent your schools that maybe we might not have heard yet? And not to put you on the spot, just anything that comes to mind, how things are going, or any concerns that you have, or as you review the board packet, any feedback that you'd want to provide on the topics that we're reviewing tonight that we might not hear otherwise.
I can go ahead and take a shot at this one. So a big concern obviously has been masking policy. I think a lot of what, I can't speak for obviously anyone at my school and their agreements with masks or not. All I can say is that all students at my school just want to be back at school. I know that being back at school has just been so much better for me. I've talked to many of my peers and classmates, and being back at school is just the #1 priority. So I think many of them, you know, disagreeing with the masking or not, it's just a big thing to be back at school. And I think if we have to keep going on with masks, I think the priority is just having those masks and making sure that we're back at school and in person, because I think the learning is just so much more enhanced when we're back in school.
Yeah, I agree with him. Like he said, when we're in class, the biggest thing is that we just want to be back in school. We saw what happened to other grades, like previous classes, and how their high school, middle school, elementary school days were cut off, and we just want to be back in school. I mean, it's not perfect, you know, teachers are yelling at students, and students are very not the most respectful, and they get the responses that they don't deserve. But I feel like most of the teachers at my school understand that, you know, this is what we're gonna have to deal with, and we do have spaces and people that we can talk to that if you feel like if you feel like you don't agree with it, you can express yourself. But like I feel majority of us just wants to be back in school and just want to experience schooling for what it is. Like, we know it's never gonna be normal again, but anything that's give us the closest thing to normal is what we will take.
I will get back to you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Does anybody have anything else?
I have just
Sure.
a couple of off-the-wall questions. And I understand if you can't think of an answer right now for any of these. Okay, let's just say, just throw everything off the table as far as money or anything. If there was one thing that you wish your school had that would help you and people that you know be better scholars, or to support you as scholars, what is it that you would wish for?
We talk about this, and it's so crazy because I was just talking about this in my AVID class, and it's having like a bigger racial integration with our teachers and faculties that are inside of the school. Specifically with myself, I know that I don't have faculty members that look like me or have experienced things like me, and they try their best to relate and stuff like that. They try their best to, you know, give the best advice and stuff, but it's not the same. And we talk about this, and one thing I like about the teachers at ASIO is that they don't take things personal. Like, you know, kids can go on and things can get pretty personal, but teachers don't take it personal, especially teachers that I communicate with. They don't take it personal, they just understand. And that's the one biggest thing, is having not only of African American descent, but Native American, Asian, just a bigger integration with faculty members to relate, especially with my school being a very balanced school when it comes to races. I feel like the faculty should reflect the students that go to the school as well.
I feel like that if there's one thing that could be added, I feel like it should be like what is at like Maple Grove in a way. Like, I feel like we should have 1 hour or like a class period where we can catch up on work, or like study hall. But we do have homework center after school, which is also very helpful. But I feel like sometimes it can be overwhelming, like having a long block schedule or having multiple classes in a row, and sometimes it's very overwhelming. So.
All right. Did you?
Does Cal have something?
No, I think you said.
Nope, you're good.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your thoughtful answers and or responses, I should say. And thank you for all your work that you're doing and being present today. All right. Our next agenda item is the superintendent's report. Superintendent McIntyre.
I wanted to say thank you again for our student reps tonight. I know they have very busy lives and are moving on to the next thing in their evening, so thank you very much for being with us again tonight. All right. We're still getting the swing of this a little bit, so it's only their second meeting, so nice job. Thank you, Chair Dawson Walton, and good evening, board members. As I start my superintendent's report, there really does, despite all the challenges we're having, there's still enthusiasm and excitement as you heard from our students being back in school. I mean, that really is where everyone desires to be, even though there's lots of pressures and stresses on everyone. So I'm really proud of the efforts of our students and families and staff as we continue to live up and aspire to that theme of forging a new path. And as we continue to adapt to the difficulties that the pandemic's brought and the systems and routines that fall into place, I think, into that next normal, as you heard our students talk about what normal might look like. First, tonight I'm going to start with our points of pride, as we do every month. A regular part of the superintendent's report is to share our points of pride. You heard a number from our students. I'm going to probably end up doubling up on a couple here. Points of pride celebrate our student, staff, and community members who are contributing to the accomplishment of our mission, which is to inspire and prepare all students with the confidence, courage, and competence to achieve their dreams, contribute to community, and engage in a lifetime of learning. In the area of achieving dreams, congratulations to Park Center High School's Siddique Jabate, the Star Tribune Metro Player of the Year in boys soccer, and Minnesota State High School Coaches Association's Mr. Soccer. So basically the best soccer player in the state is here at Park Center Senior High. And yeah, very proud. Here's how Park Center Senior High coach Jason Barnhouse describes his outstanding offensive attacker. He's the total package: touch, speed, size, soccer IQ, extremely coachable, and a great teammate. You put Siddique on any team and they're instantly a threat to win the state title. He's that good. So what a compliment. Congratulations. And I think it was mentioned earlier here, at this time on Thursday night, our Maple Grove Crimson football team will be preparing to take on Eden Prairie at US Bank Stadium. The winner of that game will continue to the Minnesota State, basically the 6A football championship on November 26th, again at US Bank Stadium. So here's a photo of the Crimson showing off their crimson and gold pride after last week's win over Woodbury. So we'll be cheering you on, Crimson, and show them why they should fear the Leaf, right? Several of our runners, as you heard earlier, came back from the girls and boys cross country state tournament on November 6th with a lot of success. Osseo Senior High sophomore Cade Sandvig came in 24th in the boys tournament. Here he's pictured with Alexa Davis, a senior at Osseo Senior High, who came in 17th place in the girls tournament, and Jules Davis, a sophomore, came in 34th. So outstanding performance. We had some Maple Grove runners as well. Were successful, and freshman Gannon Ferens placed 38th in the boys tournament, and freshman Jordan Ode, here shown in the left, in the middle photo on the left, placed 51st in the girls tournament. And senior Cody Kreiser placed 124th in the boys tournament. So really congratulations to all of our runners and a successful cross-country season. Also congratulations to the following District 279 students who've earned near perfect scores on the American College Testing, or ACT, college entrance exam. Earning a score of 34 out of 36, pretty impressive. Aaron Judd from Osseo Senior High School, and Ellen Anderson, Cody Kreiser, Edwin Mizzen, and Kathleen Schaffler from Maple Grove Senior High. Earning a score of 35 out of 36, Jack Boyett, Gabriel Delvin, Sadaya Tasman, and John Teed, all from Maple Grove Senior High School. The ACT measures the students' performance in math, English, science, reading, and writing. And it's not an aptitude or an IQ test, but really related to what the students have learned over their career and in their high school courses. So earning between 34 and 36 puts the students in the 99th percentile of all test takers. So very impressive, and way to go, scholars. In the area of contributing to community, Lindsay Long An A-plus student sophomore at Maple Grove Senior High is donating her time to provide free tutoring to students in our communities. And you heard our students talk a little bit about finding that time to complete their work and meet all the expectations. She credits her younger brother with the desire to achieve in school and give back to others, and says the tutoring is just as rewarding for her as it is the student she tutors. So thank you, Lindsay, and thank you for helping others achieve their dreams. Also, thank you to the Philando Castile Relief Foundation for its support of our scholars and families. On November 5th, Valerie Castile and other members of the Philando Castile's family visited Palmer Lake Elementary School, you can see here in the photo, to donate $25,000 to District 279. The gift will be used to support families with school meal debt. We are extremely grateful for the gift and the impact it'll have on our scholars and their families, so thank you again. Also in the area of lifelong learning, in the title, My Love, My Life, the 4th book composed and published by students in Pang Yang's Hmong language courses at Park Center Senior High, and I think now District 279 online, get the titles right. Scholars have the scholars share the stories of how their parents met and what made them say, I do. And I talk with my wife every day, like, do we still say that? And giving advice to Hmong youth. In their next book, Beyond the Color of Our Skin, that book will be published before the end of the year. So they're clearly very busy and amazing writers. In our next photo here, here's a flashback, although I still can't believe it's October. It feels like a long time ago since October. This was scholars at Park Center Senior High who had planned themselves student-led planning and presented the Dia de los Muertos event for the students and staff from October 27th through the 29th. It was a 3-day event. And some of you were able to make it. It was very impressive, and to be able to do that over 3 full days was outstanding effort. At the event, participants could craft, write letters, try different foods, and listen to traditional music and learn more about the holiday. So again, an exciting 3 days of enthusiasm and energy as students shared their culture with others. Late last month, CCX News put its school spotlight on Park Center Senior High Schools Unified Family and Consumer Sciences courses. So in unified classes, students receiving special education services and students in mainstream classes learn alongside each other. Here's a quote I love from Kara Perzik, a special ed teacher at Park Center. She said, "When I think of the unified movement, I see it starting in the school, but as the students leave school and they graduate, for that culture of inclusion to carry with them wherever they find a job and in their families and in their communities brings them the greatest joy." Park Center Senior High offers students the chance to participate in the unified classes in physical education, family and consumer sciences, and in art. In the area of mission-driven employees, Maple Grove Senior High School Principal Bart Becker was honored with the 2021 Rotary Club of Maple Grove Business Ethics and Leadership Award on October 27th. This award recognizes and honors community leaders that exemplify high ethical behavior and strong leadership in their conduct, business, and organization. Becker accepted the award in celebration of his Crimson staff, whom he said have performed in amazing ways over the last 18 months. Congratulations to Principal Becker. And finally, thank you to our employees for their support of the Osseo Area Schools employee giving campaign, Unite to Fuel Change. The campaign to support the District 279 Foundation and the Greater Twin Cities United Way raised over $44,000 to help provide resources to our students and community. Special shout outs to Fair Oaks Elementary, where over 75% of the staff participated, and the Osseo Area Learning Center, which had over 66 participation. Thank you very much to the staff at those schools for their support. And Chair Dawson-Walton, that concludes my superintendent report this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So our next agenda item is our school board committee reports. I will start with Director Grady.
Thank you. I had 2 4-hour sessions over the past 4 weeks for negotiations with the teachers union. And I am so grateful that our teams can come together with mutual respect for deep conversation that will ultimately drive the best outcomes for our scholars.
Thank you.
That's it.
All right. Sorry. Director Bucks.
All right, so the timing of this meeting, Brooklyn Bridge Alliance meets tomorrow and Rise meets on Thursday, so I'll have a report next business meeting.
Okay, sounds good. Director Mosqueda Jones.
Yeah, two reports, but before I report that, I just want to give another shout out to the book from our Hmong students, My Love, My Life. I have halfway through it. It's real uplifting read, so I'm just recommending it. My first report is District 287. Our meeting last Thursday got canceled because of Veterans Day, understandably so. And the meeting before that was, the majority of it was taken up by the strategic priorities update. The strategic priorities in District 287 are racial equity, trauma responsive healing centered practices, evidence-based instruction, and employee well-being. The indicators of success that happened last school year are that the suspensions in 287 are half the rate of other Minnesota schools despite having students with the most complex needs. The gap is narrowing in student engagement and credit attainment and percentage of meeting the reading growth standards. Also, critical incidences, restrictive procedures, and suspensions were down. Staff attendance and retention were up. The goals for 2023, under racial equity, having the year of learning with Resma Meniken. If you haven't looked into his work, it's pretty fascinating. Continuing with equity teams, looking at the racial equity framework, and continuing with that. Financial equity, having a diverse community, and using critical race theory to eliminate bias and to come up with a framework for eliminating bias. Under trauma responsiveness, the goals are centered around trauma-informed leadership and practices and social-emotional learning, like we are here in ASIO. Evidence-based instruction, the targets will be around increasing practices of evidence-based instruction and professional development and teaming. And then finally, under the goal for employee well-being, working on a positive and trusting culture, and then supporting career advancement, including grow your own, so that the staff can more directly reflect the students. So that's 287. And then yesterday, Director Simons and I had the opportunity to attend an ECMAC meeting, enrollment capacity. I'm blanking. Enrollment. Okay. And we looked at the initial November 1st enrollment data, and they're still working on the detailed data from November 1st enrollment data as far as, what class sizes are in individual schools. There were discussions in small groups around our projections versus the actual data of how many students we have. Looks like we're down only about 100 or so from our projection, which was pleasant to see. We looked at enrollment versus capacity of each building. Many of the buildings are under capacity, not necessarily in large amounts. And that is also dependent upon what class sizes are, et cetera. We also got to look at the data for the enrollment in 279 online by area school. Something I noticed is that 15% of that enrollment are from students outside of our district. Another interesting thing for projections for our enrollment in the next few years is Hennepin County birth rates are down for kindergartners entering in 2026 by about 2,000 students, more than we've seen in any kind of past data. So that was kind of interesting, I thought. What did I miss?
I think you hit on it, just a lot of puzzlement over feeling that there's schools that are very tight and concerns about class size, but then observing that we're under capacity in many instances. So I think there's more clarity around that, knowing that the November numbers are the numbers that we use to make some additional staffing decisions after that. So I think the need for clarity around that in the community was definitely surfaced in that meeting.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's it.
Dr. Simons, you can
Yep. So two committee meetings, the Community Education Program Advisory Committee. So this is all of our summer enrichment, after-school programs, adult enrichment programs. So consistent with the theme of having staff shortages, that has really hit community education very hard. And we know Brian has been in here talking with us throughout the year. They've done a great job adjusting programming. They've got wait lists for Kid Stop and 4-Star because they don't have the staffing. So the staffing issue is everywhere. It really is everywhere. And so, to be honest, like, this is a really good time to inform our community that we need help. And I know we've been kind of everywhere in terms of recruiting across the community, and just if you know of anybody who can step in to sub, if you know of anybody who can come in and fill some positions. In fact, it's on our consent agenda tonight. We don't have building supervisors for our athletic associations across the district. So now the athletic associations are asking parent volunteers to fill in as building supervisors so that the kids can play sports in the building. What is being said is being felt everywhere, and it's real, and we need help. Everybody needs help, and this is just one area. So, that was a topic of conversation, as well as planning for the future as we look ahead and what type of programming and adjusting to the new normal, so to speak, with balancing online and in-person came up as well. And then we had the District 279 Foundation Board of Trustees meeting, and we went through some of our regular standing items, financial reporting, ending the giving campaign, and very thankful for everybody, especially from the employees who are not only stretched thin, but also contributing financially to the foundation themselves. We do have a night out coming up in February, so that will be another great opportunity to participate. It's in person, silent auction items. You can contribute to the committee to be part of that and to attend. Lots of sponsorship opportunities for those in the community who want to sponsor a table. And those are the main items there. So those were my two.
Awesome.
committees.
I was gonna just ask, so I know our staff really participated, but how the mentoring event in Brooklyn Park went?
Yeah, I mean, it was, so many of us all attended that. I had the opportunity to work a booth, which is fun. It was our first time doing that. I think we learned a lot. I think we had good participation. It was really fun to see I talked to quite a bit of men in the community who came to inquire about mentoring opportunities, which is huge because we know that right now boys, there's many of the mentoring programs, boys are in need of male mentors, and there's shortage of mentors across every program. And so I'm hoping that we can continue to have that type of forum where we have mentorship opportunities, create more awareness. One of the things that I suggested to Brooklyn Park Council members was to just maybe even have a web page where people can go to the city and to see, or maybe the district can collaborate in that way, where you just go to one place and you can see all of the different organizations. They're all different levels of commitment. Some are really high levels of commitment where it's once a week type of mentoring relationships, and others are once a month. But as we know, and we've been talking a lot about this year with social emotional behavior, social emotional health, that our kids, our kids are suffering, and we need the community to engage in those type of opportunities for mentorship. God, I have like all the bad news tonight. It is
Early
easy.
time.
No, it is like it's tough in a lot of our programs, private organizations and in our district organizations. So we see it and we hear it, and it's everywhere. So please engage, spread the word to be involved in mentoring opportunities, and we'll try to collaborate to get more word out on it.
And when, like you said, I think we heard tonight, we're really feeling it in our district, so appreciate that. Director Douglas.
I just have one report tonight for DPAC. We met last night. It was a good meeting. How our meetings go right now in DPAC is primarily we divide into 3 subcommittees. And our meeting last night was actually via Google Meets, so it wasn't possible. Well, maybe it would have been, I'm not totally sure, but I'd have to figure that out. Normally what I would do if I were the only board member at a meeting, or when both of us are there, we can kind of circulate between the 3 subcommittees so we have a good idea of what's going on. But because it was a Google Meet, I was only able to participate in one of the 3 subcommittees last night. And so last night I was with the data and assessment team. I'm glad that I joined that meeting because there was only 2 community members that were able to attend. So to really get to dive deep into what those concerns were was really rewarding and interesting, because normally there's so many people with so many things that we're discussing that we don't get to have that close, in-depth dive into what we really want to get at. And the way these subcommittees work is that each committee will evaluate and assess information to bring forward and make recommendations to the school board. So our data and assessment team is looking at all kinds of data, like our World's Best Workforce report that we reviewed at our last meeting, and strategize what ways that the community members think that we can improve upon our academic success by evaluating that data. So it was a really, really rewarding opportunity, and the committee is still evaluating which specific direction it wants to take. And in April, they'll bring that forward to the full board.
Right, thank you.
Yep.
My committee update is with the Association of Metropolitan School Districts. Last a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, we met and we honored Paula Forbes with the 2021 Friends of Public Education Award winner. She is an attorney that specializes in employee relations consulting and does a lot of facilitation around in the education field, and with many of the kind of reimagine work that we're talking about, a lot of our districts around equity, and so that's was really great. I think the biggest thing that we're focused on, we're in the process of finalizing the strategic plan with AMSD, but kind of the big thing, which is almost hard to believe, that we're getting ready for the annual session preview for the legislative platform, proving that. And so that's January 7th, so it's just around the corner. So it's I know we talk a lot about engagement, but it's always so, as we prepare and for the session, the legislative session, it's we need to hear from our community. So it's always really good to hear from many different perspectives and all voices in our community. So thank you. That's it. And so our next presentation this evening is the fiscal year 2021 Auditor's Report. Kelly Benusa, Director of Business Services, will introduce the presenter.
Good evening, Chair Dawson-Welton, school board members, and Superintendent McIntyre. Tonight, our independent auditor will be presenting the fiscal year 2021 audited financial statements. We shared the preliminary financial results with the board at the September meeting. Those results have not changed. Jim Eichten, the managing partner with MMKR, will be presenting the audit report this evening. Welcome, Jim.
And Board Chair Dawson-Welton, as Jim approaches, who knew that he would draw such a crowd for an audit report? You really, this is going to be good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be great. Unfortunately, I'm fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, I've been drawing a lot of crowds lately at school board meetings, and there's a lot of important work happening, including in our school boards around the state, including audit reports. So I'll try to keep my comments as brief as possible this evening, and get through what we need to as part of this board meeting. Again, thanks, Kelly, for the introduction. My name is Jim Eichten with, MMKR CPAs. I'm the managing partner with MMKR. I'm here this evening to provide an audit report for the year ended June 30th, 2021. It is the auditor's role in the district to provide an opinion on the district's financial statements. That financial statement is actually a comprehensive annual financial statement. It's about 180 pages long. It is a very in-depth document, not only going through the financial results for fiscal 2021, but also provides a lot of other detailed information, historical information, as well as current data around what's happening in the district. As part of the audit process, we're required to provide an opinion on that financial statement. We're also required to audit the district's internal controls as it relates to financial activities. We also complete what's called the federal single audit of federal awards. That particular audit is one of the more extensive aspects of our audit, given the level of federal awards and funding the district receives. Lastly, we issue an opinion on the district's compliance with state laws and regulations. We audit a list of laws that are provided by the Office of the State Auditor. So we don't audit all laws that you're complying with, just those on the list provided. The audit results this year were provided in information that was provided to the board. In my management report, that particular management report provides those opinions. And as you can see on the PowerPoint, the district did receive what's called the unmodified opinion, which is really a clean opinion on those basic financial statements. We did not have any findings to report in the internal controls and compliance report that we audited this year. And we also did not have any findings related to the single audit of federal awards. I think it's an important aspect, before I move on to the last item, to note that the district did receive a significant increase in the amount of federal awards this year, given the amount of additional aids to school districts around the country, as well as the school district. Those aids come with additional requirements, both from a compliance perspective, but also from an auditing perspective. As a result, as we and I myself go through these presentations, as I mentioned, we're finding significant increases in the level of findings, specifically related to the increased requirements in those areas. So to have no findings this year is certainly an achievement above and beyond what you would normally see. And then lastly, where there were no findings related to the Minnesota legal compliance audit this year. So in my audit report, in my management report, we also go through what I describe as the second part of the audit. The audit first part, as I covered, covers the compliance aspects of the district's audit. The second part is really the financial results. And in these financial results, we go through a lot of comparative information, some funding of financial education in the state of Minnesota. This particular graph shows the formula allowance, really an indicator of the amount of funding that districts are receiving. You can see that over the last 10 years or so, the districts are receiving anywhere from 1% a decade ago to 2% to 2.4% in the following fiscal year. These particular percentages are certainly positive towards school districts, but the level of inflation, the cost of doing business in school districts is increasing above and beyond those formula allowances, and can create a lot of challenges when it comes to operating an organization of this nature. So in my presentation, we also go through what's called a fund balance presentation. The state of Minnesota, the Minnesota Department of Education, publishes statewide fund balance data as a comparison to operating expenditures. That particular percentage, as highlighted in the yellow bar, has been fairly flat over the last decade. We have been seeing increases in fund balances statewide the last few years, certainly last year as presented in the data, but also just this year as it relates to some of the changes in operations under the COVID environment. As you can see on the graph presented there, the district's fund balances certainly are very stable and consistent, but are also experiencing some of those same increases as operational changes have impacted the fund balances the last few years. In this particular presentation that I put up here, that's also in my management report, this is a presentation showing revenues on a per student basis. It does cover all of the governmental funds of the district, general fund, special revenue funds, debt service funds. This particular presentation does show that overall in 2020, the district received $16,799 per student, which is almost identical to that amount in the metro area. It is identical based on this presentation. As we look at the trend in 2021, you'll see those particular revenues per student did increase, but mostly related to the decline in the number of students. As you have the number of students decline as was experienced this past year, the average certainly increases. As I referenced earlier, you can see the amount of federal revenues that per student at the district street did increase dramatically. You received $955 per student when on average you were receiving anywhere from $400 to $450 per student. So you're significantly increasing the amount of federal aid received. Some of the other categories that were impacted on this presentation were in other funds, specifically in the area of community service. The community service fund saw a decline in overall revenues as in the COVID-19 impact. You're also seeing other revenue sources decline, specifically, again, going back to the operating in a COVID-19 environment causes those other revenues to decline. This particular presentation shows expenditures per ADM served. As you can see here, the district spent $16,666 per resident, which again mimics what the statewide and metro area averages are. Specifically in this case, the metro area average is very consistent for 2020. Again, you're seeing expenditures per student increase, but mostly related to the decrease in the number of students. You're also seeing some impact in those particular increases, which are actually decreases overall in specifically certain areas that were impacted by COVID-19, transportation, instructional support services, some of those areas that had declined specifically working in this environment. So as we get into individual fund presentations on this particular graph, this is a general fund financial position graph, which is probably one of the most important graphs that we're showing that shows the financial well-being of the district. This shows the unrestricted fund balance at the end of the last 10 years, as well as the comparable cash position, but it also shows expenditures, which is representing the size of the organization. And as you can see, the size of the district's operation has increased significantly over the 10 years reflected, but that fund balance has actually grown with it. And that's important as you grow as an organization, as you become larger in size. You want that fund balance to follow along with you as you grow and experience change. As you can see, this particular graph, what stands out to me is the consistency of the fund balance. This has been a very stable organization. The fund balance position, as shown in that particular graph, is very consistent and very reliable when it comes to financial operations. We do provide information in my presentation categorizing these general fund financial positions on a categorical basis. I put this particular presentation up here because I think the most important part of this presentation is the category called assigned. The district has assigned or really set aside some of its fund balance for what's defined as subsequent years' budget deficits. If you look at the fiscal 2022 adopted budget of the district, it is adopted as a deficit, and as a result, there is a certain percentage of fund balance that is required to be set aside. You can see that in that particular presentation as the assigned number is significantly higher than it has been in the previous years shown. We also provide information in this graphical presentation showing really general fund revenue results, as well as I'll get to the general fund expenditure results. And these particular aspects are put up here for a couple of reasons, but mostly to show how the district is doing in terms of its results compared to budgeted projections. Your district experienced significantly, I will say, the results this year mimic what we're seeing all over the state when we're going through these operational areas, and I'll show you why. This particular presentation shows the general fund revenues were under budget by about $3 million. And most of that, again, relates to the district had fewer than expected students this past year, which is very consistent with what we're seeing in many districts. Federal sources were under budget as projected. Again, as the environment, the COVID-19 environment worked, it's challenged to put all of those federal sources into play. And then lastly, you're seeing the other revenues, which is gifts and fundraising and some of those resale activities are significantly lower than budget, just again, operating in a COVID-19 environment. This can also be said when you look at the general fund expenditures. The general fund expenditures were about $17 million under budget for the year. Again, that's very consistent with what we're seeing in most districts this year. A lot of operational spending was lower than projected under the operations that occurred in fiscal 21. Open positions, less overtime, really unused budget capacity stand out. Transportation costs were significantly below expectations. Tuition to other districts to pay for certainly special education students or other students that may be attending other districts was lower than expected. Utilities for running buildings, supplies, fuel, all of those things were lower this past in fiscal 21 due to the environment that you were working in. We do provide information in this audit report on other governmental funds. You can see these particular presentations here, the capital account, the food service fund, the community service fund. All of these funds, as you can see, are very consistent in their fund balance position, all very stable, as has been the case for many, many years in this district, and this year is no different. So with that presentation, I did want to summarize my comments, really in summary. We were able to issue a clean opinion on the district's basic financial statements. That particular financial statement is a comprehensive annual financial report that will be submitted for achievement and for excellence in financial reporting. We did not have any findings to report this year, and I commented that is more significant because of the level of compliance that was needed this past year. Federal grants were significantly higher than this past year, as well as all of the operational changes when it came to operating in the COVID-19 environment. Really is can be attested to this district and the strong financial team that you have here. We did talk about the financial results being adhered to projections. I think it's important to understand as an auditor, when I ask questions about budgets, I get very detailed and consistent information from the team. I also get very consistent and timely information. For many districts this past year, the information isn't as timely as you might have in the past, just based on COVID-19 and some of the operational changes. That hasn't been the case here. Everything is very timely. I did reflect on the long-term stable financial trends of the district, a very strong financial position as it comes to consistency in operations at the district. We also show at your district a focus on long-term funding of obligations. You have a number of funds that stress not only the current operations, but funding for other long-term obligations. And then lastly, we found the financial records in the audit process to be in excellent condition and a very thorough process. As I talk about your district to other teams and with the superintendent at our exit conferences, some of the themes that stand out is really the systems are in place for strong financial management here at the district. That has been the case for many years, and this year is no different. And I want to stress that's an important ratio and really part of the success of the district and the audit process this year. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you might have for me.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm open up for my, do you have something to say?
I'll wait till you.
Okay. I'll start with Director Douglas.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I'm not at all surprised by the findings. We have a really incredible team. We've consistently had really good reports without findings. But I also appreciate that you really recognize the significance of no findings considering the increase in our federal grants. And also, which you may not be aware of, we did have some staff changes this year as well within that team. So when you combine all of that, the impact that this team has on all the decisions that we make and giving us a good rating like this allows us to continue to position ourselves financially in strong ways. And I am just incredibly thankful for the team that we can always depend on and count on them, even with the significant challenges that we had throughout the last year and a half. So thank you, everyone. Very, very good work.
No, I just echo the appreciation to our staff. We had in our last work session a significant review of the current projected budgets. So this just continues the excellence by our finance team and all of the other departments that go into providing the information that's required on top of everything else. This has been a difficult year when it comes to monitoring finances and ensuring accuracy and ensuring nothing's missed, and it's very appreciated. Thank you.
Director Mosqueda-Jones.
Super short story. So my very first board meeting was this same board meeting where it was the audit, and my father is a CPA, and they swear me in, and we're going through the meeting, and my dad gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning, so he's doing this. And then you or one of your representatives gets up there and starts the audit, and he is wide-eyed, super excited about the audit, and super impressed with the financial department of our district and the presentation. So that to me means, you know, the world as a daughter of a CPA who grew up doing books the old-fashioned way, right? So I just want to thank again John and Kelly and your team. And thank you for the thorough audit and especially, you know, signifying the importance of how difficult that is in this current climate. So thank you.
Dr. Brooks.
I don't have anything to say that hasn't already been said. Just want to say thank you for all of the work that went into preparing this report and all of the work that has gone into I specifically like that you called out the increase and the compliance requirements, and so I know that has sort of also added to the workload all around. So yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
If I could dive into two of people have mentioned it, and it was mentioned in our call, but the increase in federal revenues isn't going to go away. I'm auditing fiscal 2021, but these increased requirements are going to go on for a few more years. So the importance of the staff that you're referencing and giving credit to will continue as I walk away this evening, for sure.
Dr.
Yeah, so just to continue, thank you so much for your work. Thank you, Kelly Benusa and Jordan Morstad and the entire financial team for keeping our district in a sound financial position so that we can keep supporting students to the best of our ability in the years to come.
You know, this is really, it's the best designation, you know, a school district can receive. And, you know, it's just to echo everything else, it really speaks volume. I think it just shows the level of transparency that our team has been able to display and the credibility. And so it's like, you know, there's so many different, you know, I think being on a school board and you know, there's so many competing interests and things, and our finances are something that, you know, are so strong and stable that it's one, you know, obviously we worry and we are focused on it, but it's not a worry like it is in some other districts because of that. So it's really appreciative. And Superintendent McIntyre, you're going to say something else?
Well, here's all the good news. This is the report. That's how complicated this year was. It's very thick, and I just have to echo a lot of what you said. I'll be brief, but, you know, even though we are deficit spending into our fund balance, you know, at some level, the disruptions with shutdowns and closures and changing learning models last year so many times Our team really weathered that storm exceptionally well to not have any findings. This would be the year to have findings if you were going to have them. So I think it's a testament to two things. One is some strong protocols, systems, procedures that some of you have seen over the years, but those are only as good as the people that create them and stay disciplined with them, right? So our team, excellent talent in our department, and I say it every time I get a chance to. Thank you. I know they're in the back row there, and the financial office doesn't always get a lot of love, so this is one of those moments, and our processes and models are great, but it's only because we have amazing people. So thanks again to our team, and Jim, thank you for your efforts to work with them, and always giving us feedback. Even with no findings, we learn things. We look at how can we get better, and we appreciate you and your team giving us feedback on ways we can continue to improve. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. All right, board members, the next agenda item is a consent agenda. Are there any items you would like to remove for separate consideration? All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as printed?
So moved.
Oh, thank you. I knew you were going to say that. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Director Mosqueda-Jones, seconded by Director Grady to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion?
Yes. I just wanted to call attention to, we had a representative of our community come up and speak about some of the grants that we've received, and then also they were just addressed in this report. So I just wanted to call attention to the fact that I believe at least half of the items in here are grants specifically related to like COVID relief type funds or things of that nature that are specifically tied to the pandemic and how our schools have been impacted. So if anybody's curious about what that actually looks like, please check out the consent agenda.
Thank you for saying that. I think there's like over 30.
Yeah, 31 total, and many of those are those one-time monies, and then there's the recurring grants on top of all that.
Sure.
So this is probably the most we'll see in any one board agenda. And it's the timing of the year. This is the time of year where we are going through that, and I know how much process goes behind getting them to you for approval. So again, thanks to our team for making that happen.
Yeah, and thanks for mentioning that, Director Douglas. I was thinking that too as listening to the conversation, so thanks for saying it. All right, so all in favor say aye.
Can I just say one more thing?
Sure.
Sorry. I just want to also thank the staff, because there are a lot of grants in here that we needed to apply for. So I want to thank all the staff that wrote the grants so that we can get not just the federal dollars, but there's things from, stuff for infants and toddlers to No Kid Hungry grant. There's so many grants in here that take a lot of energy and time to write and to get acceptance. So there's a lot of people that work really hard to make sure that we have enough funding for our students.
All right.
I'm ready to vote.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes 6-0. Now on to the action items. So our first action item this evening is acceptance of the fiscal year 2021 audit report. Mr. Morset.
Thank you very much, and also thank you for the extra love. We certainly appreciate that in the finance department. So having seen the presentation by Jim Eichten from MMKR on our fiscal year 21, ending in June 30th of 2021's financial report, the audit firm issued an unmodified opinion of the school district's financial statements and found no deficiencies in state and federal regulations or compliance with internal controls. So with that, we would ask, and the administration would recommend acceptance of the 2021 fiscal year audit as presented.
All right. Board members, is there a motion to approve the fiscal year 2021 audit report to include the fiscal year 2021 financial management report, the fiscal year 2021 comprehensive annual financial report, and fiscal year 2021 special purpose report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Director Simon, seconded by Director Brooks. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Our next action item is the 2021-2022 COVID-19 Preparedness Plan, Resolution on Masks, Face Coverings. Superintendent McIntyre.
Thank you, Chair Dawson Walden, and looks like our finance team is accepting your opportunity to leave the room. So tonight I'll be providing you with a COVID-19 situation update, as I've been doing each month, along with our preparedness plan, and there's been a lot of things in motion right now that are in the middle of those processes, along with our mask resolution agenda items, so combine them all together. So just a quick look backwards. In August of this year, we launched our back to school plan to really prepare for students back in school full-time in person, which was our shared really desire, and we know it's the best place for our students to be, along with our new online school, 279 Online. So at that time, we reviewed the preparedness work around vaccination and case rates and face coverings and masks, personal hygiene, social distancing, meals, disinfecting and cleaning and ventilation, and all those really key mitigations that collectively together are really what makes the safe and welcoming environment happen. We were one of the first districts this summer to kind of put our position out there, and we've really consistently tried to rely on the information that we receive from our public health experts. So in the past, we've also had a lot of engagement with our board and with our administration on the plan. I do want to take a moment to thank our students, families, and caregivers and community members for all the feedback. There's lots of different perspectives on all this, and I reflect back even to when we had conversations with students in the spring around various topics related to this and how it impacts them directly. Tonight we'll talk about how we can continue to provide the best mitigation strategies to keep students in school. We've seen rapidly growing illness rates and quarantine rates here recently, so we'll talk more about that in a minute. And I just want to say, again, thanks to you as board members for your thoughtfulness around this and the desire to really be intentional about how we plan for keeping our students in the in-person learning environment as much as we can. And just as a parent myself, living it myself with my own 3 kids, none of us love being in the middle of this. We've acknowledged that before, and none of us like wearing our masks. I can't wait till we're done with it. I think you all agree with me on that, and we're all kind of tired of it on some level, but we're going to do that with intention, because you have charged me as superintendent to be responsible with the health and safety of each and every scholar, every 20,000 plus student in our system. So we're going to need to take every possible strategy to protect everyone as much as we can along the way. So just to launch us off here, Kay, if you can move on to, thank you. Yep. Our commitments remain the same here. Committed to providing a safe and welcoming learning environment for our staff, our students, our community members, and the visitors that come to our buildings. We are doing the best we can to mitigate transmission in our schools and communities, and this is all done with a goal to keep that in-person learning happening as much as possible, minimize illness and students missing school, staff missing school, so that we can operate our buildings as well. Yesterday, you probably read that Minnesota's not in a good spot. We had the worst 7-day case rate in the country this past week, so that doesn't help us across the state. You'll see shortly we've had a significant increase in our numbers here in the district, and that's not unique to us. It's happening around the state. Just today, school boards around the state and superintendents received a letter from the MDH Commissioner Jan Malcolm and the president of the Minnesota chapter of American Academy of Pediatrics, expressing their concern with the high case rates here the last couple weeks. And in their letter pointed out that since we started school, we've all been kind of watching the changes that are happening here, but we're about 7 weeks into the school year. As we move forward, you can see in the resolution, and I'll provide some information for the rationale behind this, but I just thought I'd lead off here with the next slide, Kay. The recommendation I have is for the board to consider is extending that resolution that you approved in August, although with a much shorter timeline this time. We started the year not knowing what we were walking into, and we put that out there through the first trimester, which is December 6th. Tonight I'm recommending that go to the end of January. And you'll see there's a number of reasons why for that, because there's a handful of unknowns that we don't have solid footing on yet. But I do believe by setting a shorter target and letting that expire, hopefully at the end of January, that we can move forward. But it is dependent on a number of things. So in reviewing our framework again, we look at all the data available to us. We consult with the public health experts and our leadership groups and stakeholders in our system, develop the recommendation that's before you tonight, and then puts that for the school board to make a decision, and then we follow up with communicating, implementing, and refining that decision. So to update you on kind of where we're at, and things have changed dramatically in the last few days. As of yesterday, We have 204 positive cases last week. That is significantly up from the weeks prior, and I'll get to that in a moment. And this is impacting 29 of our sites. When it comes to symptomatic cases, last week, this is a week at a glance, 350. Almost 90% of those cases are students. In our year-to-date, over 850 cases, positive COVID cases, with about 84% of those being students this year. So a much different landscape than last year, where we didn't see many student cases, but with the Delta variant, it is predominantly students at this point, and right now predominantly elementary, as we're getting through that vaccine protocol for the younger students. We have had over 3,000 symptomatic cases, and we've talked about how that is intersecting right now with a number of other illnesses that are kind of seasonal, as well as things that are a result of being kind of in shutdown last year. Both data presents a high volume of students and staff who present ill with symptoms, and that is putting significant stress on our system. So this next chart gives you a kind of a visual look at the first 7 weeks of the school year. For the first few weeks, we were seeing our typical case rates between 40 and 60 cases per week. And then that week before MEA was about 50. The week after, we jumped up to 70 plus. It was a big jump, and then the last week, the week prior to last, was 125, and now well over 205. So literally about 170+% increase in just 2 weeks as far as the numbers go, and it mirrors a little bit of what's going on with the state. So here in the system, this has put a lot of strain on our classrooms, on our staff. We are managing through, as you heard earlier from some employees, just making sure we have people who are healthy to teach and be in our classrooms. And those sub issues, as I've been telling you all year, are real, and not just our district, but around the state and probably around the country. So we were seeing a sharp increase in our actual positive case rates the last 2 weeks, especially. So if I take a step out a little bit here, this graph just basically shows you that our county is still in the high transmission category. And you can see that red color on the right, predominantly reflecting that high transmission category. On the next slide, Kay, thank you. This just continues to show, as we review every week with our public health officials, that there's continued racial disparities in the data. It's disproportionately continuing to impact our Hispanic, American Indian, Black, Asian Pacific Islander, and multiracial members of our communities in our county and in our school district. The next slide just gets at a breakdown of a little bit of the age levels here. And the percentage of all cases is right around that 25% for school age students. However, we're seeing that school age children rate is higher than the respective percentage of them in the population. The next slide is really probably one of the more challenging ones that we've seen. This is the highest positivity rate we've seen. And if I think back to that line graph I just showed you, those are the highest rates we've had since the pandemic started. So our case rates now are higher than they've ever been in the 18 months that we've had. Now we have additional mitigation pieces at play too, so that is helping us stay in person, right? The things we didn't have last year, and I'll get to those in a minute. But here, this data here is lagging by 2 weeks because it's a 14-day delay on the positivity rate. So my suspicion and what we've been told is it's higher than what you're seeing on the slide here because of what's happened the last few days. The 7-day 100 per 100,000 case rate's 361. Anything over 100 is in that high category. So we're still well into that high transmission category based on the calculation. And to break that down a bit further, okay, where is Kay sitting? Oh, she's back there. I'm looking at her. I couldn't see her. This is the county rate, and if you drill, that's 382. So again, that 100 threshold is kind of what we're hoping for, but things you can see the little arrow under that, it's increased, and if you see the little dots, those are the data points along the way, and you can see that to the right of the graph, it's really increased the last few days. If you look at the district slide next, this is the zip codes in our district. This is again community, not the data in our buildings, but out in our communities in our district. You can see that trend line again is going up, and came down just a bit there, about 25 here in the last calculation, so but still at a very high rate. So we're watching that closely. So on the next slide, when we look at our decision-making guide, we're still kind of monitoring this. We're hopeful that we can get that much closer to the moderate transmission category in the near future. But right now, we're not close to that, as though this is not the only variable. We're watching closely, and you've seen me provide you updates with our staffing and operations situation and just the rates as they apply to students and staff. You need to hear more about the other pieces of this puzzle that will play out over the next 4 to 6 to 8 weeks. So I do first need to just give a shout out to our COVID response team. They have been working day and night or in weekends to keep up with the volume of cases and work that comes along with it. Because of their work, our schools are operating with their safety plans that include all the mitigation strategies. So I know we're focused on masks tonight, but it does include everything: ventilation, cleaning, all the different things that go into each and every school, which, as you all know, all the schools are different in their physical size and how they're designed. So we're applying our strategies in different ways across the system. We're out visiting and monitoring. That team is out visiting and monitoring and evaluating at sites, making sure we're implementing as best we can in those locations, in our buildings. Our health offices, I'll say it a few times tonight, have been inundated. They're overwhelmed. They're really having a hard time keeping up with just the sheer volume. We have brought on 10 additional consultants to assist our nursing team and building coordinators in the ongoing procedures, and we're using that $1 million grant to pay for those positions to help out our team, so we're not putting more on our school nurses and more on our school staff. We have a program manager and 3 AESPs to support our COVID team that will help with the new OSHA standards that are coming. You'll hear more about that in a minute as well. But I have to take a second to thank Troy Schreifels, Dave Mordock, and Colin O'Brien, who've been working around the clock, along with Mrs. Senes, who supervises our nursing team. It's been tireless work and very challenging of late. The testing program is shifting as well. So what we were doing, the PCR tests, we are now able to offer the Bionex Now rapid antigen test that only takes 15 minutes. Families do have to complete a digital consent form ahead of time, and it is administered by a nurse and COVID team, and we can get those results in 15 minutes, and students and our students' guardians. So if students or staff are negative and only have mild symptoms, they can remain in school and go back to class. Now, if symptoms are greater and people are not feeling well, they will go home, but not have to quarantine for 10 days with a negative rapid antigen test, which is really helping us keep students in school and not have to quarantine as long. We still have the bulk PCR test available, and we still have our MDH testing site here in the district boundaries at Brooklyn Park, which continues to do a really strong job of getting results back within 24 hours. And families can also order the free saliva test kit to use at home. I think we've seen over 1,300 families already sign up for the Bionex Now test option. We are still kind of waiting on supply chain issues with getting those kits in. So we're, like everyone else, a little bit at the mercy of when those will come in. When it comes to vaccination, we offered an optional vaccination clinic on October 26th and November 15th for employees and their dependents. And that second event was last night. So we did do appointments and walk-ins. I think we pretty much filled up every appointment and tried to meet every walk-in that we could provide. And that included boosters available for those staff who were there for boosters. On the next slide, we are familiar with the fact that MDH provided 4 vaccine clinics. We just provided the locations to students ages 5 to 11. There were 400 spaces available at all 4 clinics, and we filled, I think tonight at Park Center is, it's tonight. I think by the end of the day, Troy can tell me, we filled every slot. So we had all 1,600 appointments were filled. And we had very few no-shows, looking back on our earlier on the 9th and 10th at those clinics. So completely filled those up. They booked quickly. In our preparedness plan, I just want to keep pointing out as well that it's a number of things. We continue to work hard with our cleaning and disinfecting and the ventilation efforts. And continue to promote, hand washing, all those really basic things that make such a big difference to help, because every strategy makes a big difference. And all those items are still on our COVID-19 preparedness plan on our website and the COVID-19 hub location on the district website. Regarding the federal OSHA issued, it's called the Emergency Temporary Standard for vaccine and testing. It basically at this point requires any employer as Minnesota OSHA still is preparing to roll this out, anyone with over 100 employees is required to comply with. The statewide deadline for full implementation is January 4th, which is challenging in the sense that our winter break is right in front of that. So we really got to have this dialed in by mid-December. And pending any injunctions or legal challenges, because we've seen some of those across the country, we'll just wait to see if that happens in our circuit. But right now, that is not the case. So we have the state has a November 29th deadline to have their plan filed from the state in the state register. And that means December 6th is the deadline for our staff to provide proof of vaccination to their employer, which our employees for us. And then the January 4th deadline is when the staff would have to begin submitting results to employer if no vaccination records on file. So again, anyone over 100 employees, which is basically almost the majority of school districts across the state, along with any other employer in the private sector. So we're continuing to work on this requirement as part of our plan in alignment with our policies and following the OSHA standards and policies as they come through. So between now and into winter break, we're going to be continuing to implement as more information comes to us on this. We'll partner with our labor groups as well, our employee groups, as the planning progresses. Once required, as we understand it now, staff will have to provide the digital copy of their vaccine card, and vaccines and testing would be recorded into this app that you might see a lot of other places using. It's called the Clear app. It's a mobile app used to track and report the testing results. If employees are not vaccinated, they'll have to submit to weekly testing and submit their results using that app. So unvaccinated staff would still be required to wear a mask with or without the board mandate in place based on the OSHA requirements we anticipate. Right now, we have 84% of our staff fully vaccinated, so that still means we have a few hundred staff that are not, and we'll have to comply with that testing program. And Troy and Dave know every detail about every possible in and out on that thing that's coming our way. So we're just moving forward until we are told otherwise to have that ready to go with the anticipated requirement. So as I begin to wrap up the update here tonight, I've done this the last couple times. I want to stress that we continue to see very high volumes of visits to our health offices. You've heard from our nurses. You've heard from our staff. It's been really challenging. It's not just COVID-19, it's a lot of other illness, including the flu and RSV and common colds, and many of the symptoms all look the same. Our health staff's doing an amazing job, and I need to give them another shout out to keep up with these large volumes and visitors to our health offices while the workload's so high. We really do need every mitigation effort right now, including our masks and all the others, because even with our staff, we have this past week, just due to illness, we had most of our buildings with double-digit absences, and it's really hard to operate schools when we have a lot of our staff out ill. And that, coupled with the staff shortage that every district's really feeling right now, we have fewer and fewer subs. So to keep our schools open and do that in-person learning we all believe needs to happen, please, I want to remind everyone the importance of, if you're not feeling well, follow the protocols. If you're really sick, stay home. All those things that we say that are kind of simple but are critically important right now. Considerations moving forward on the next slide. These are the things that will, over the next 4 to 8 weeks, will become more clear by the time the January 25th board meeting comes. So our district case rates are trending up rapidly right now. We do not know the impact of our impending holiday gatherings and time off from school. Our staff shortages due to illness and absences is significant right now as well, and we're trying to get in front of that. We don't know yet. These are things, these are all things we don't know the outcomes yet, but we will learn over the next few weeks, including what will be the vaccination rates for our younger 5 to 11-year-olds in addition to those 12 and older students. We're just, we haven't got any preliminary numbers yet. If you think of the 5 to 11-year-olds that were able to get that first dose, by the time they get their second, they'll be fully vaccinated 2 weeks later. By about basically Christmas time or the winter break. If you were able to get in or have been able to get in right away. So I think we're going to see a window of time into January for that to take effect. Also, we are waiting to kind of see what the impact of our rapid antigen testing program does. How many take advantage of that? Does that help us keep students in school and minimize some of the quarantine requirements that we have? Again, then also the impact of the new OSHA requirements on our employees should that be implemented and finalized by the state. And then lastly, there's a piece here that the federal requirement on mass and public transit expires January 19th. So we'll see if that also can, right now that affects our school buses. We'll see if that expires or whether that gets extended. So there's kind of a long list of things here that are in process. We're not clear completely on what the impact or outcomes of those would be. And we likely will have a more clear picture on those items when I come back with this in January. So with the fact that these are moving targets right now on our efforts, I'm not comfortable recommending moving away from masks when you add all those things together. I do want to point out too on the next slide, as I've done before, I'm circling through our different leadership groups to get their input, whether it's our district senior leadership team, our COVID response team, our building leaders who are day in and day out with their staff, feeling the impact of any mitigation effort we have, including our mask requirement, along with our labor groups. And right now, those district leadership groups report to me that the majority of their members still recommend at least continuing this on a little longer so we can get some clarity around these particular things that are in motion. So with kind of wrapping this up, the resolution, what I'm recommending now is not as long as the first start of the year, a whole trimester, although I feel like I've had a lot of people request that. I feel like if we can get through that first month of January and get all these pieces that I just went through more solidly in place, see what the outcome of the holidays is. If there is an impact, hopefully there's not, and we start seeing a trend down, we're going to be in a place where we maybe can let that sunset. So at least we can reevaluate this at a sooner point in time than the end of second trial, which is more closer to March. Because I don't think, to me personally, the data we have now helps us decide what we need right now, but we are not sure what will come February, April, and beyond. So it's hard for me to recommend anything beyond the next 4 to 8 weeks based on a lot of moving elements to our plan. So with that in mind, I'll just wrap up with saying thank you again. I know it's challenging and exhausting and tiring, and there's lots of strong emotion and feelings around this either way. But I really feel like this is important for us to continue for another period of time until we can get through all those items I listed earlier and give us a chance to see if those stronger mitigation efforts really can turn this to a more healthy direction and really get us out of not just the mask wearing piece, but a number of mitigation efforts that we would love to not have to continue to have to implement in our buildings. But again, the goal that we all share is students being in school. You heard our students talk about it tonight. I love that they have that perspective, because they see being in the building, even if with some inconveniences, that is the best learning. That's where their relationships and their connections are with each other, with their adults in their life, and the learning is taking place compared to other options that we have. So with that, Chair Dawson, will now turn it back to you to facilitate the action item on the resolution.
All right, thank you, Superintendent McIntyre. I'm not going to start from either side. I'm just going to say who wants to go first. Any questions, comments, clarifications from Superintendent McIntyre's team?
So clarification before we get to comments. A question I have is, so with this recent number, the highest number of cases we've had, just over 200, that's just over 1%. So according to our chart for our student case rates, that is just out of the low and just into the moderate. And under that scenario, if we were only using that piece, I know we are not, but that would say that they're recommended, not required from our own data component. So I just want to, do I have that factually correct?
I would disagree in the sense that we're not applying district case rates to the CDC community case rate chart. That chart was designed for the community case rate, 7 day per 100,000 cases. we would have to prorate that for 20,000, and we don't have that kind of metric kind of in place.
I'm asking, on our chart, we have two pieces of it.
Yep.
One is our internal data. And if we're at 1% on that component of the chart, we're in the, just getting into the moderate. Or no, did I not understand the case rate number?
Yeah, the
cited?
case, the chart you're referring to is per 100,000 people. You know, the yellow.
Yeah, I'm talking about
Can we
the
move it
district
to the
number
chart
part.
so you can see it?
You know, the yellow, orange, and red categories, is
Yeah,
that the one you're
for
talking
our,
about?
that has two pieces. One is the district number.
Oh,
and one
yeah,
is the-
yeah, I see what you're saying. Thank you for sticking with it, because now I graphed it, now it clicked. Kay
we
doesn't
put it
have
up
it
there?
there, but that, it's whatever's higher,
Yeah.
right? Right.
Okay, but for that component, if I calculate that correctly, the highest point we've been at ever thus far, the 204 on our
Yeah.
student population, we're just going into that moderate.
Yeah, yeah, I think, I hear what you're saying, so I understand.
Okay, I just didn't want to misstate
Yeah,
that.
I was
number.
confused, so
Okay.
thank you.
All right, thank you.
Do you want to just keep going, or do you want?
Well, should we ask questions before we get into our comments? Or?
Yeah, ask questions, yep.
I have some questions,
Okay.
or are you still going?
No, that's my only question. I have comments for later.
Go ahead, Director.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. One question is around the vaccine. Well, actually, I think I have 3 questions around vaccine proof. My first question is, what other vaccines do we require proof?
You mean for the employee
Mhm.
OSHA piece? Tim might be able to help me with that. I don't know if we have any other state requirements for vaccine. This may be the first, who knows? For employment, right? Because right now this is coming at us from OSHA as a state requirement regarding employment.
So we don't require proof for other vaccinations?
Not that I'm
Just this
aware of.
one is potentially going to be required?
The vaccination requirements, to my knowledge, are under the compulsory attendance law pertaining to students, not employees.
Right.
So employees will, for the first time ever, be required to show proof of vaccination status for a virus? Okay.
But for clarification's sake, the requirement wouldn't be specifically just for proof of vaccination. The alternative would be for COVID-free testing, non-positive.
So we don't require proof of vaccination for influenza, nor do we require testing weekly for influenza, but we're going to do that for COVID-19.
We aren't, the state is.
But we're not going to push back on that, even though we're
Well-
one of the largest districts in the state and have a surmountable amount of influence over these types of decisions.
Trust me, we've talked a lot about it with the state because you just saw the operational challenge it presents for us.
Okay.
So, yeah, those conversations have been had. I know Laurel just walked in. It's been talked about at our state negotiators and HR group. It's clearly a challenge.
All right, so to take that a step further, how will that impact our substitutes?
It won't help. If it's every employee, and Laurel, you may want to come up and add comments if you'd like. So we're even worried about how it impacts our casual employees that maybe work an hour or two for us taking tickets at a game, for example, or I think it's going to hit all districts in those kind of ways. We're not liking that kind of scenario, right, Laurel?
Yeah, the way the federal mandate is written, we believe MNOSHA will follow that federal mandate, and it requires all employees, and that includes casual employees. If they are not working for a period of time, they don't have to show proof of testing until they're ready to come back to work. So if we have a casual employee that's a ticket taker for 1 month and then doesn't work again for another 2 months, they don't have to continue to show proof of test if they're not vaccinated until they're ready to come back. But it will be a nightmare logistically to track all of that. And I had conversations with Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry about those concerns. They are following the federal mandates as it stands right now.
Okay, so that was my first question on those things. After reviewing this, one of my biggest concerns about this presentation is there is absolutely no end game. There's no metrics to say this is where we need to be in order to stop doing this that are clear. And even with the metrics that have been provided, there's significant inconsistency. It does not make sense to continue this indefinitely. It's not useful for students, and I won't continue talking about that, but I want to know what the end game is.
When the case rates come down,
To what?
under 50 and below.
Okay,
Per,
so.
you know, in that metric, I mean, that's, if you're asking, that's my response.
So based on that
Can we pull
slide that
that,
was
can we
just
make
up.
sure we have that slide up, so we're,
And
know what we're
again, this
talking
is a
about.
guide, right? So you've seen all the variables that we're watching.
Well, that's exactly what my concern is. You just said this is a guide and the postmark keeps changing, so there is no end game.
Well, the end game would be if we can get a vaccination rate up over 80% and these cases drop, then we'll be done.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to stick to just asking questions right now, because that's what we're doing. But correct me if I'm wrong, Director Simons just pointed out that we've just now moved into, by our own numbers, into the moderate transmission level. So by our own numbers within our district, we were in the low transmission category, which is the lowest category on this chart. So it still doesn't make sense that we are continuing to mask. So what is the end game? 0 cases?
On the chart, I've said every time I presented it, it's the higher of the two indicators will be used to determine the action. So that's
Despite the fact that we might have 0 cases within our schools, if our community case rate is high, what you're saying is that we will still continue to mask within schools.
Potentially, you're giving me, there's a lot of possible hypotheticals.
Well,
that we could
that's
do all day
exactly
long.
what my point is we don't have a solid, clear exit strategy. Is that accurate or inaccurate?
Our strategy is, to me, is here, when the data is there, then our actions will follow.
Okay, so but this data is constantly changing. How we measure the data is changing. So the goalpost is always changing. We need an exit strategy. And what you're telling me, correct me if I'm wrong, is that there isn't one.
No, I believe there is one. It's when the case rates are low enough for us to go to either from require to recommend or even not even recommend. It's really going to be predicated on all the mitigation efforts and the case rates going down. And for as long as they're up, we will continue to have to do mitigation.
So what I'm hearing you say is there won't be a point where you would recommend that we discontinue the mask mandate.
I will not go against the public health guidance and the numbers if they're that high. And I've said that every time, and I've said it for the last 15 months, 18 months.
Okay.
And I know we disagree on that, so thank you I appreciate the questions.
Okay. My next question is about comments that you have made through the presentation. One of the comments that you made was about the symptomatic cases and the high symptomatic cases that we have right now, which are, as you stated, a result of the shutdown last year. That was a direct quote, you said that. That because our other conditions are showing up because our kids were not in school. You mentioned cold, flu, other illnesses, right? So those symptomatic cases have increased because as a result of the shutdown last year.
What I've been told from our health professionals is the flu may be stronger this year because of the flu not being as prevalent last year, same with RSV. Those are from our health providers telling us that.
I just wanted to clarify that that's what I heard you say. As a result of our shutdown last year, that now these symptomatic respiratory viruses have increased.
If that's what you heard, I'm telling you what the health professionals have told us. We will see a higher flu or RSV season this year because people weren't around each other last year as much.
So what we've done is potentially make the flu season worse for our children who have a greater risk of being negatively impacted by influenza.
You'll have to ask the health professionals there. I'm not going to pretend to answer those medical questions.
Then we shouldn't be making medical decisions.
okay, so are we gotta, let's stick to, this is not an interrogation, so let's.
Well, I'm trying to get to the bottom of these
Okay.
questions and find out where are we going with this? What's the end game? Because we're going to see a rise in symptomatic cases, which tells me that if we see a rise in symptomatic cases, we potentially won't, when we review this in a few weeks, then we're gonna be in the same place.
If we see
That's
a
what
rise
I'm
in-
trying to
My
get the
response to you
answers
there was, that's where the rapid antigen test helps us. If they're symptomatic and not COVID, kids can stay in school. And we've already started that. And not have to quarantine because of symptoms. So that's one of the new efforts that we're putting in place.
Okay. That's my last question for right now.
Okay, we'll have another time to go around. Director Mosqueda-Joe.
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Director Brooks.
You know, I say this every time, but thank you for all of the time that goes into this. I had a very eager, older elementary age kid that wanted to get vaccinated, and has been asking for it all year, and that time has finally come. And as soon as he got the first vaccination shot, the first thing that came out of his mouth was, "Now I get to take off my mask." And that was sort of significant to me because that was actually the first time throughout this entire pandemic that I've heard him express any sort of a strong statement, one way or the other, on having to wear a mask. From the beginning, both of my kids that are still in school have gotten up every day and gone about their day throughout the world without complaining once about the mask. And that's something that I've heard consistently as I've talked to parents, knowing that there are many exceptions across the district, and we've heard about that in schools with the constant reminders, and in some cases it's been described as yelling that's come from teachers and having to remind scholars to wear masks. But I know this came up at the beginning of the year where someone brought up this idea that we encouraged our high school students to get vaccinated and then decided to continue with the mask requirement going into this school year. And I know that is going to be another concern with our elementary age kids as we continue to promote this and try to get to that 80% that you just mentioned a short while ago, for us to continue to encourage them to get vaccinated, but not have some sort of a timeline, an end date in place, or an exit strategy, as Director Douglas called it, I think is troublesome. I think one of the questions that I have is, can you talk about the plan for additional test sites? Do we have any sort of data beyond tomorrow?
Test sites or vaccine?
Vaccine sites, sorry.
Yeah. Troy or Dave would know better. MDH comes to us for those tests. They provide those clinics, right? Not the district.
Mhm.
So we're only at the kind of the mercy of when they're willing to come in our communities and provide them, because we don't have the staff or capacity to provide those clinics. We have to rely on our public health officials. So I don't know if Troy, you want to add, see you standing up, so maybe you do want to add something.
Regarding testing sites, we had a very ambitious jump on testing or on vaccinations. We were probably one of the first districts to jump on board to provide it with MDH. So it was kind of a rolling curve to learn how to get it set up and to get it deployed. Tonight was our third one at Park Center. I was there right before this meeting. Very eager families to get in and to do that. And so we have one more tomorrow night again, which is completely booked out. And so there's a high interest, which caught a lot of people on surprise, especially MDH, because they didn't think they'd have that high of participation, and they did. And so we continue to reach out, and we're being reached out by other organizations as well. And so it's a matter, we have a lot of facilities and a lot of space. So we will work and partner with other systems to provide that, and we'll watch to see how the demand continues. If it continues to be high and those organizations are interested, they will. I know MDH right now is focused on doing a rolling implementation of vaccines across the state. So we can't grab them again and say, come back for 1,600 more, but down the road, we're hoping that there might be some more opportunity. So I don't know if that answered your question or.
It does. The date that's being proposed is January 31st, and that date will be here before we know it. Mm-hmm. We know that, the vaccines typically require 2 doses that are spread out over time, and so my concern is if we're just at 1,600 as of tomorrow,
sure.
We still have quite a ways to go.
I do know that Hennepin County reached out to us as well, so we started with the state, Hennepin County reached out, and we were coordinating a response to them, and then they reached back and said they found a site to do it within Hennepin County's area on this side. I'm not sure where that's at yet, but I know the county's working on deploying vaccines for that age group as well in the community. Our stuff was specific to our district. We did not open it up outside of our district just because the demand was so quick and so rapid. So we'll continue to monitor that and look for other opportunities as well. There's also just the challenge of getting the individuals in and having enough nurses and staff within the participating groups to be able to facilitate that. Internally, we do not have the resources to have our own staff administer vaccines to the students or to the community.
You know, one of the questions that I had was, it was actually included in the slides within your presentation, Superintendent. You know, I think one of the frustrations for me with this presentation, and I always talk about this slide, so I'm not going to do it this time, but you know, not only do I like to see the data that you're using to make these decisions, but I'm also visual, and to get this slide and only be able to view it for a split second as you go through it is sort of frustrating, because I don't have enough time to process it. So in the future, if we could get this as some sort of a bench handout, even if it's right before the meeting, like, I would greatly appreciate it, just so I can refer to it. But back to one of the slides that you mentioned, I'm wondering if you can talk about any information that we have regarding hospitalizations, specifically in our district.
I don't have a lot of information other than we have had students and staff hospitalized or worse who either attended school here or work here. That's about all the further I can go with some data privacy. I don't know if we have a running total though from the county. Dave might know if we have any specific information, because unless families tell us, you know, there's a lot of data privacy pieces around this, so we're only aware of the ones that we're told of.
So so thank you for answering that, because that's, you know, also in the back of my mind, but I was actually referring to the residents, the general community of District 279, which, you know, is, 8 different cities. Do we have data that we can talk to that speaks to the impact of COVID on our district as a whole?
What you've seen tonight is what we have. Yeah, so we don't have a lot more detail unless Dave or Troy, I'm missing something from our calls with public health each week. I don't think we have any more detail than what you've seen.
So you might be referring to the hospitals in the district, and I believe there has been some city council conversation that they don't have the information to say it's residents that are here, it's just the hospital, and they come from all over, if that might be what you're referring to.
And I don't know what you're talking about either, but if you know, the Hennepin County just pulled up their website, they have a COVID dashboard with current, I mean, it's Hennepin County, I don't know how specific it gets, but it talks about hospitalizations.
Well, it's on slide 12, but it's broken down by age, but we don't, that's countywide. So we don't have community specific.
So can we go back to that slide?
Yep. Keep going, Kay, right there, right there. So upper right-hand corner is hospitalizations by age compared to the population, and that's what we're provided by the county. And to your point, I appreciate not having this ahead. We literally got the last set of data at 5 o'clock, an hour before the meeting. So, but I think it's a good recommendation in the future. If we're in the same spot, we can print hard copies so you at least have some ability to see it tangibly.
I know you've mentioned this before as well, classroom quarantines. I know all of us are getting messages from the district about possible exposures. How many quarantines are we typically dealing with on any given day? Classroom quarantines, that is.
whole classes?
Yep.
Yeah, so you've received, it's, I think, Troy or Dave, you might want to come up. I think we've had 7 or 8 or 9 at this point. We had 3 or 4 last week. So every time we have one, you get an email about it. So it's not double digits, I don't think, Troy, but we've seen an increase in the last week because of the higher case rates in classrooms. Maybe you got a little more insight on that, Troy.
No, I think every recommendation that we bring forward to you, Corey, that you push out to the school board,
Okay.
is you guys are seeing each classroom.
Got it.
So I think total, we've had about 7 classrooms, 3 last week alone. I mean, it was a very busy week last week. And so, yeah, but 7 totals from the beginning of the school year.
Thank you. All right, so on the recommendation today, I know you have that January 31st date in there. My concern is that regardless of the decision that's made by the board today, there's a significant portion of the district on either side that will be disappointed. And essentially what I heard today is there isn't a ton of confidence in that January 31st date. And so there's a high likelihood that this board, again, is going to have to vote in January to possibly extend the mask requirement, again, disappointing scholars and families. And so I know you've explained multiple times what your decision-making process is in this, and I know it's still not clear to everyone. But at some point, I guess I'm wondering how vaccinations are going to factor into this and get us closer to whatever that end date is. Right now, I'm feeling like January 31st is not going to be it. And so I'm just wondering, and maybe I don't need a direct answer to this, but I think the biggest thing on my mind is, do we need to set a date further than January 31st? And that's our end date, that's our exit strategy. Because right now, given the numbers that you provided, January 31st doesn't feel like it's actually gonna get us any closer to where we wanna be. And the last thing I wanna do is have to vote again in January to put another extension on the mask requirement.
So my response to that would be, we're only as good as the accuracy of the information we have right now, and it, as you've seen, just in the last 3 weeks, has changed dramatically. So for me to try to guess on what the situation will be mid-January or later is really hard. That's why I wanted to set the target date sooner. If the board said, nope, we're gonna put this mask mandate out till March, that's your prerogative. But I was also trying to accomplish, we got people that wanted it all, we got people that want it the rest of the year. I think we're only as good as making the decision on the current information that we know is, relevant for the time being, and I feel pretty confident that by the end of January, that list of things when it comes to staff requirements, testing, vaccine, the holidays, there's that list. Those are all things are unknowns right now, but by the end of January, we'll know exactly what the results of that list are, the impact of those things are. But if, I'm trying to kind of thread that needle with, I don't like bringing it back every time either, but I think the decision needs to be based on current information because it is so fluid. So I don't feel great about trying to guess on what's going to happen in March today because it just changed over the weekend, let alone knowing what we might anticipate seeing in a month, 2 or 3. So that's the dilemma I find myself in and coming to you with a recommendation.
I certainly get that. I think one thing that I would just maybe close with now, at least for the moment, is I would really encourage the district to overly communicate the availability of the vaccines and the importance of it and the impact that it's having on the district. And with that end date in sight right now, if it is January 31st after this meeting, that we are very clear with the community that is the end date that we have in sight, and that it's important that they get their kids vaccinated if that's what they choose to do for their family. At some point, now that the vaccine is available to our elementary age kids, and yes, we need more of those clinics opened, I think we need to start factoring that into this decision and, again, to Director Douglas's point, start to get to a point where we are actually moving toward removing the masks instead of continuing with this extension that doesn't seem like it's ever going to end.
And, as a board, that's why Superintendent McIntyre brought the resolution forward, so this is the action we're gonna be taking tonight as a board. Just to be really clear. So, we are voting on that, and so, Director Grady, do you have any questions, or
I don't have any
clarifications?
questions, but I have comments.
Okay.
Does anybody else want to ask more questions first?
Just go ahead, let's just
Okay.
keep it going, because it's getting later.
I want to say thank you to the students and parents and employees that reached out through email and came to tonight's board meeting to share your feedback about the masking requirement. Some parents have expressed concerns over the safety of masks. A study has been reported that carbon dioxide poisoning has been A study that reported carbon dioxide poisoning has been withdrawn due to a lack of validity. I hear a lot of parents who are worried about their kids being able to breathe. The American Academy of Pediatrics explains that carbon dioxide are very tiny and even smaller than respiratory droplets. They cannot be trapped by breathable materials like cloth or disposable masks. Similarly, there is no evidence to suggest that face masks can increase the chance of developing pneumonia or any other bacterial, fungal, or viral infection in the lungs. Parents also wrote in about the anxiety and depression that their children are experiencing, and I understand how easy it can be to attribute changes in mental health with the advent of maskings. However, there is no evidence to support that conclusion on a population basis.
This is our business meeting. We already had public comment. Continue, Director Grady.
Thank you. As I said, there is no evidence to support that conclusion on a population basis. And it reminds me of how much we as a district have been working to support the social and emotional health of our scholars, because the pandemic itself, and not the masking, has exacerbated the pre-existing mental health crisis. The majority of stakeholders have asked the school board to continue the mask requirement for everyone's safety, because the numbers are still high in our schools and communities, and because in Minnesota, 13 school employees and 2 students have died. Several factors go into my support of the mask requirement until the end of January 31st, 2022. First, we need to give time for parents to get vaccines so kids can build immunity and our overall vaccination rate is going to go up. Second, we still have other vulnerable populations, those with kids under the age of 5 and families and children who are at high risk. And third, we have to consider the impact of COVID transmission due to more indoor contact during the winter months and the impact of travel to see family that we haven't seen for 2 years. And I think that that largely plays into the decision to have the mask mandate go until January 31st. I think that largely goes into the fact that we're talking about having the mask mandate go to January 31st because there's a lot of unknown variables that we're going to be sussing out over the next couple months. So, until the end of January, please help your children remember to wear their masks properly. Check with your pediatrician to see what's best for your child and take advantage of the availability of vaccines that are safe and extremely effective at reducing serious illness and the death in children. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you to my colleagues, and we'll obviously have other people, you can make comments as well after. I just want to say a couple things. First of all, at my core, I believe that there's nothing more important than advocating for your child. 1,000%. And so I want to just thank all the people that are here, all the people that are listening and watching. I want to thank all the different people that we've heard from via email and probably just different conversations all of us have had. and I've said it again, I mean, you can just turn on the news at any point, and it's a highly emotionally charged topic, okay? I look at my role, or all of our roles, is it's not just our own children, it's all of the 20,000 children who have very diverse needs across our district, and circumstances and reasons why families feel like there should be masks, and why families feel like there shouldn't be masks, and why people feel like, you know, people should have an option. And so, you know, I think we can, you know, the debate is in the public realm already. It's on the news. It's in political, you know, circles. And that's what I don't want in this boardroom. I don't want the politics here. And I won't stand for that. But what I want is that what I'm more concerned about than anything is our graduation rates, our future, ensuring that our scholars are able to thrive. And next month, we're going to be talking about and presenting our final strategic roadmap with accountability measures, with ways we want our students to succeed. And I understand that this is a very important topic. I know it means so much, and I listen. I've read the emails, and I want it to go away. I want us to not wear masks. We have an extremely diverse district in every single way. So we have a lot of different perspectives and, like I said before, reasons. So I really want everybody to hear that, okay? What I want to hear, who I actually want to hear from is Troy or Dave. You know, it's like number after number, and the numbers mean different things to different people. You know, 10% could mean a lot to some people, little to some people. Two children, you know, or being impacted by COVID can mean a lot to somebody, and some people are like, oh well, you know. So, I would love to hear from Troy and your team's perspective of what are you seeing the impact of COVID in our schools, the impact of masks in our schools, and you know, just kind of from your perspective. I know how I feel, what I see as a parent, but just like you see that really district-wide perspective. And so it's more of that qualitative experience and view than the quantitative.
Thanks for the question. Spending about 7 days a week for the last 8 weeks we've been in school working through this, we've spent a lot of time, and I say 7 days a week because I got a team that started out last year at 3, and with our new IEA consultants that are assisting our nursing team and our COVID team, we're over 21 staff nonstop trying to keep up with this pandemic. It's very busy. It's a very busy situation. I wake up every day with the charge of making sure that our students are safe, not only with COVID and our risk management and our safety and procedures within our buildings. And I will say that we are inundated with the volume. You're hearing it on the news. No one can argue that the news has been talking nonstop about hospital rates, hospital beds. I was just previewing something that was on the news just a few minutes ago. You know, our COVID positive cases went, you know, the state standard last year around June or July when we stopped taking masks out, people are asking for an endpoint. What's the trigger? When we were seeing all the numbers drop below 5 on the positivity rate, we saw it. We're up to 10. We're double. We're the largest we have the highest in the United States. And it's the pattern's falling right in our buildings right now with what we have going on. We're on calls pretty frequently with schools to have conversations about the spread within a classroom. And so we're having those conversations. We don't make a decision to close a classroom lightly. I bring in a team of 4 or 5 of my staff, along with the site-based staff, the teachers and the principals and leaderships in the school, to say, should we close this classroom because of the number of cases in a classroom? And so we have very serious conversations. We don't take any of them very lightly at all. And we have to make very difficult situations, but in the end, it's about the safety of the kids. So when I take out a classroom of 22 or 23 students, or even higher than that, I'm not only thinking about the safety of the kids, I'm thinking about the curriculum and the learning and the opportunities and challenges that those kids are going to have learning remotely again. And that's not an easy decision, but at the end, it becomes easy because I look at what will that impact have for that class of 20 or 30 versus that building of 800 or 900 in an elementary or 2,000 in a high school. Our team is constantly working. We're constantly mining data. We bring it to you guys as quickly as we can. We're constantly looking at the different attributes that are being applied. Mitigation and layered approach is our approach. So as I sit here tonight and I listen to many of you speak about your concerns and your interests, and the mask is like this big focal point. I don't hear a lot of debate around turn the ventilation up more and more frequently, because that doesn't impact the learning environment from the perspective of you're not feeling it on your face. I dislike face masks. I'll be the first one to admit that. But I do know that it's part of the layered approach. And as we continue, I'm struggling with the fact, and I've heard this, from many people, well, if we get vaccinated, we should be able to take our mask off. I heard Director Brooks, you talked about that with your own child. Both my kids are vaccinated. Both of them were looking forward to that. And suddenly that's changed. The key indicator that I would share with you, the thing that's changed since 18 months ago, really directs around how has the virus changed. Delta's come, and we're seeing it, and we're feeling it in the buildings. And so as I hear about shortages of staff and I hear about the challenges we have, and I do have to pause for 1 second. We talked about shortages of staff, and I appreciate that you shared that. One of the big challenges is school bus drivers right now. I got to do a plug, guys. So if you're really sitting at home and you want something fun to do, get in a bus. I'm telling you, it's a great time. I got 20 years in the business, and I don't know how to sell oceanfront property in Arizona, but I can tell you that driving bus is great. But what I'm getting at is the Delta variant has changed, and it's changed the way we look at our mitigation strategies. And when people hold us accountable to the things, and we've heard this, we've heard it from our leadership at the executive level, from the president on down, get your vaccination, we can get rid of masks. And all of a sudden now people are getting their vaccinations, we can't get rid of the mask, and people are asking why, and they're frustrated. We're learning, though, that this Delta variant is attacking, and it's attacking our kids at a different rate, and it's attacking our younger kids, and we're seeing it. So these are the challenges that we're faced with, and I'll be honest with you, we're having calls 7 days a week, late at night, because we learn more information, or our teams in the building are just getting caught up in doing their reporting that comes back to us. We have a centralized approach for COVID mitigation in our district, which means that we have a centralized team here at the district. We're in a lot of school districts, and I know there was a comparable chart that somebody shared earlier about look at this district and look at this district. I have kids in 2 different districts. My wife works in another district, and I work in this district. So we're impacted by 4 districts alone in my own family, and it's overwhelming. But every district and every component that I review each one to kind of take a look at things, and I talk to my colleagues, each district's handling it a little bit differently. But I would say almost all districts are in the same focus, which is the students being in the classroom. You heard it from the students earlier today. So that's my charge. That's why I get up every morning. I'm here at 6 a.m. I leave really late, and I'm not trying to maybe cushion my evaluation at the end of the year, but I'm just saying that this is the point. I mean, we are spending a lot of time because we want to keep kids in school, and it's very difficult. And I do appreciate everybody's perspective in here, including parents that are against some of the mitigation strategies and may support others. I understand it. My children don't like it either, but I also understand, can we keep kids in school? And that's my main focus. And our team has grown rapidly to try to adjust. We heard in the last several meetings about nursing and the nursing shortage. And so we went out and we worked hard to find some people to assist in a market where you can't find it.
Sure.
And so that was our support from that. I don't know if that answered your question.
It does. I kind of just put you on the spot. Sorry, Troy, but I did. I mean, you're in it day to day. Your team's in it day to day. I think Superintendent McIntyre, you meet with them so many times, and I think just hearing from you is helpful to me. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add or say?
Yeah, I
Sure.
haven't made comments.
Okay.
I just want to start with reading portions of a letter that we did receive from a teacher in the district. As you vote once again whether our students and staff need to continue wearing masks, I would like you to consider this point of view from a kindergarten teacher. This year, our students have come to school overwhelmingly bolded, this is bolded, overwhelmingly behind in both academic and social emotional learning. Young students cannot hear me, and I cannot hear them each and every day. I am trying to teach kindergarten students how to read my mouth with my mouth covered or through a shield that muffles my voice. This is not effective. Students eat breakfast and snack in the classroom every day without masks on. There is no reason, once we begin learning, that a mask is needed. They are already speaking and engaging with each other without it on throughout the day. there are other points, but I'll stick to the most specific to the classroom. Students are not keeping them on during the day. I have so many other things to do and decisions to make each minute of the day. I cannot afford the time it takes to remind students multiple times each hour to find their mask and put it on. This is wasting valuable learning time. Kindergarten students are picking masks up off the floor, leaving them on the playground, sucking on and putting them in their mouth, and then continue to touch the materials around them. There are more germs being spread just by having this distraction on their face. There's a low risk of students passing COVID to each other. We know there's a low risk of students passing COVID to each other, and very few children become critically ill. A parent should always have the choice when deciding if their child should wear a mask or not. So that's, when we talk about the voice of the different stakeholders, there is no majority. It's very split down the middle. And we've not surveyed them. So we can't really say, frankly, what, at least the parents this year. We haven't surveyed the parents. And so we do get input from stakeholder groups, but we're not asking the parents, and this is their children. It's not our children, it's their children. They are the parents. We have some whereases here tonight in our resolution, but I think we're missing some. We're missing, whereas families have observed and expressed an academic decline in their scholar because their child cannot hear their teacher and classmates. Whereas families have observed and expressed an academic and social emotional decline in their scholar because their child cannot see their teacher and classmates' mouths and facial expressions. Whereas families have observed and expressed an academic and participatory decline in their scholar because their child cannot speak or be heard by their teachers and classmates. Whereas families have observed and expressed a decline in the mental health of their scholar. Whereas families have expressed that this board has no right to make medical decisions for their child. I'm not going to cite studies and lecture you and tell you what your child is or is not experiencing. That's wrong. I would not do that to any parent. The emails that we see to say what's happening to their children. This is a very divided issue, and when it's this divided, our responsibility is to give the parents the choice as to what's best for their child. We can't ignore this. I don't like wearing a mask any more than you do. We're not talking about whether people like to wear them or not like to wear them. We're talking about the impact to the kids every day. We've heard from parents that are saying they're keeping their kids home because their kids can't wear them. They're not able to go to school because they can't go to school in a mask. So I don't want to hear the phrases that we like or don't like, because it's not about whether we like or not. We keep saying, we're doing this to keep kids in school. We heard it. Are we sending a message that if they take their masks off, they're not going to be in school? Because if that's the message we're sending kids, this chart says that's not true. This chart says that when you have mask choice, are you laughing at me? Is this a laughing matter to you?
No.
You are. You're not going to laugh at the families. You're not going to lecture them. You're not going to laugh.
Okay, you guys,
at
let's
I'll conclude.
No, okay, let's just, everybody we need to be respectful in our, how we respond to each other, so continue.
We have a lot of statistics, and we've had families send it in. Our scholars should not be afraid of making a different choice, and our families shouldn't be afraid of making a choice. These kids are still in school. Our parents deserve the choice, and our kids don't need to be afraid of what happens if they take their mask off. That's all I'll say.
Thank you.
I have some comments. I would like to start by saying I've written out some of my comments, and others are just from the conversation we've had here today, so I apologize if I'm a little bit all over the place. But I would like to start by saying that I firmly believe that mask usage should be viewed as a personal health choice, and every single person in our district and our broader community should be respected in the personal health choices that they make. Allowing individuals to wear a mask as a medical device while using district facilities should be viewed no differently than any other type of medical device. As of last week, our enrollment numbers were just under 20,500 students in K through 12, with an additional approximately 300 in our voluntary pre-K program and just over 300 in our other pre-K programs through ECFE, with a total approximate enrollment of 21,100 students in all of our programs, which is actually quite astounding. But when we look at those numbers, Director Dawson Walton, you made some really good points about the learning and the achievement of our students and the diversity of our students and how students are impacted. I'm just going to give you 4 examples of categories of students who are impacted negatively by masking requirements. All students in pre-K and early childhood education are negatively impacted by masking. I did not include all of the specific data for our special education because some of them are included in these other data points, but there are more of them. An average of 1,500 students are in each grade level of K through 3, which accounts for approximately 6,000 students in our district. So we're just under 7,000 students just based on those 2 categories right there. Now, we've talked extensively and recently revealed our world's best workforce data, and we know that these years are absolutely critical for academic achievement and graduation. We have already robbed these children of nearly 2 years of highly critical reading education. We've already robbed them of that, and we're well on our way to a full 2 years. With the addition of third try, it's even more than that of our beginning of the pandemic. So we're looking at learning delays of astronomical rates here, astronomical, and we already have severely staggering graduation rates and impacts to our students. And I'm only at 7,000 students impacted. Approximately 4,200 students in our district are dyslexic. Okay? So we just add that on, right? We're going to add on the approximately 2,325 English language learners who are also negatively impacted. We've already reached over 50% of the students in our district who are negatively impacted by masking. Over 50%, and that does not account for students who are hearing impaired, students who experience autism, students who experience any other impairment or learning disability that is negatively impacted by masking. This also does not account for the many, many examples that our families and students have presented to us as challenges for them, mental health being one of them. I would venture to guess that if we did a survey of every single data point, we would find that nearly every student in our district is negatively impacted by masking in one or more categories. Every student. I haven't even included IEPs, other health disabilities, people who have profound health disabilities. We're talking about an astronomical amount of students who have been impacted by this for nearly 2 years. 2 years of loss of learning. How are we going to recover that? I haven't seen a sufficient plan to recover that learning yet. Nor have we seen, and we've already covered this, a plan to end this mandate. When will it stop? And when will we get back to educating our students at a high level? I'd also like to touch on the fact that, and this has been brought up a couple of times, but I really want to drive home the point that our teachers are not mask police. It is not their responsibility to enforce the use of masks in their classrooms. It's their responsibility to educate our students. They're not here to enforce medical device usage, period. I think that it's also really important to address that, and Director Brooks have brought this up, many of our students have expressed to us that they got vaccinated specifically because they were led to believe by the people in this room and throughout our state and across our nation that if they did so, they would not be required to wear masks. And today they are feeling deceived and they're feeling defeated because there is no end in sight. Even when everyone has the best of intentions, masks aren't often being worn properly, nor are they changed every 20 to 30 minutes as recommended for effective use. Today, we received the email from the Minnesota Department of Health, which included a letter and a fax page with information about COVID-19 mitigation strategies. Many links in that document referred back to the CDC, and I followed those links to get more information about what the recommendations are at a high level. So after clicking into those links, it very clearly says that proper mask use in a close contact situation is required and recommends a KN95 mask. However, we're not allowed to recommend those for students. A close proximity contact is anyone who is less than 6 feet away from another person for a cumulative total of 15 minutes or more over a 24-hour period of a person who is not living within their household. That's every single person in our buildings. And we're not requiring the types of masks that are required to be an effective mitigation strategy. To me, it makes no sense that we're requiring something that the CDC has identified as not an effective mitigation strategy for the circumstances that our students and our staff are actually living in day to day. I also think it's important to point out that on this slide right here, you can see that over 60% of positive cases are for our adult population in Hennepin County. Over 60% of those. And we know that within our adult population in our school district, over 80% of those people have self-identified as fully vaccinated. So the vaccination status is not necessarily impacting how many adults are contracting or spreading COVID-19, because as we know, the vaccination does not prevent the spread of the illness. And that also holds true for our hospitalizations. The majority of hospitalizations are for our adult population. I also think it's really, really critical that we talk about, as Superintendent McIntyre pointed out, that what we're seeing right now is likely a response to our MEA weekend and sports activities that occurred 3 weeks ago. There was lots of competitions and things like that. So those are all behaviors that happen outside of school. We've talked about how we don't know what the winter break is going to look like and how that will impact us. Those are behaviors that happen outside of school. It is not within our purview to control or recommend what people do or do not do in their personal time. It's not our place, it's not our responsibility. And finally, I would like to say that Minnesota State Statute 147.081, practicing without a license. It is unlawful to practice medicine for any person to practice medicine as defined by subdivision 3 in this state. Subdivision 3, the practice of medicine defined. For purposes of this chapter, a person not exempted under section 147.09 is practicing medicine or engaged in the practice of medicine if the person does any of the following: advertises, holds out to public, or represents in any manner that the person is authorized to practice medicine in this state, offers or undertakes to prescribe, give, or administer any drug or medicine for the use of another, offers or undertakes to prevent or diagnose or correct or treat in any manner or by any means, methods, devices, or instrumentalities any disease, illness, pain, wound, fracture, infirmity, deformity, or defect of any person. We are not permitted to make this a requirement. A mask is a medical device. We are not permitted to make this decision. This is a parental decision. This is a decision that happens between families and their doctors. It is not our place. We need to stay in the business of education. That is what we were elected to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anybody else have any comments or think last words, or, you know what I mean, last words? You know what I mean.
I feel compelled to say something. I'm not going to argue one way or another for any of this. People have decided which line they want to stay on. I understand that. I understand people are doing what they feel is best for themselves. I just want to note, as an educator of young children who have now have better social skills than most of my than most people that I interact with, while wearing masks all year, and who have made significant academic growth this year. That's my personal experience. It may not be the experience in every single classroom. That's just my personal experience. My daughter's a public health student, and I ask her all the time to look at the research and tell me what, to just advise me. And the reality is, I have to go with what experts are saying are the best thing for our entire community. And as someone who has loved students, since I was 5 years old, I wanted to be a teacher. That's the place I have to come from. And I know that people will be angry no matter which way this goes down. And I hope that as a community, we can get past accusing each other of harming students when we're all just trying to do what we believe is the best, given different interpretations of the data. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, Director Brooks or Grady?
Yeah, I would, Superintendent, I would be inclined to support your recommendation, as I know you, as well as some of your administrative staff, are spending a significant amount of time, not only with public health experts, but also managing the shortages in staff, and the shortage that was mentioned today, that is placing, I think, an unfair burden on staff, and significantly adversely impacting our scholars across the district. This decision increasingly gets more difficult, and getting into next year, it's getting even more difficult, particularly now that vaccinations are available to our elementary age kids. Director Douglas actually beat me to it. I was just at a volleyball game 2 to 3 weeks ago. And in the gym, it was a packed house, standing room only. On one side was almost all adults, most of which had masks on. The other side was packed, full of high schoolers. Very few had masks on. I've been all over town. I've seen youth play sports without masks. I've seen them walking in the Mall of America without masks. I've seen them at Urban Air without masks. I don't know if that's the reason that the case rates are continuing to increase, but I do know that if they're out socializing and not wearing their masks outside of the classroom, not to mention the amount of time throughout the school day that they are not wearing their masks, it again makes it even more difficult to continue to make this decision to extend the mask requirement. And so I just want to express that we really need to set an end date based on the availability of vaccinations and stick to it. I remember in the beginning, we focused so heavily on wanting to put in these mitigation strategies to mitigate the number of hospitalizations and deaths in our community. And so as we know, those that are vaccinated are not as likely to end up hospitalized. Again, I think it just further pushes us to a point where we do need to make that decision to end this mask requirement at some point. I hope that January 31st is that date, as I will be supporting this recommendation. But again, I don't feel like I can continue to extend this beyond that. So that's where I'm at.
Director Grady, any other comments?
No, thank you. I think we fleshed this one out really good tonight, and it's unfortunate that we have so much division in opinion. But I just want to bring everybody back to the fact that we really are here to make sure that our kids have the safest educational environment possible.
All right. And I don't mean to be a Pollyanna. I actually think it's a good thing that we don't all always think the same thing. I think that it makes better decisions. It challenges the way we all think and make decisions as we move forward. So thank you all for your comments and questions and clarifications. So now I'm going to ask if there is a motion to approve the 2021-2022 COVID-19 Preparedness Plan Resolution on Mask Face Coverings as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Director Grady, seconded by Director Thomas. Sherry, I'm gonna ask, can you do a roll call vote on this one?
Director Grady?
Yay.
Director Brooks?
Yay.
Director Mosqueda Jones?
Aye.
Director Kelsey Dawson-Walton?
Aye.
Director Simons?
Nay.
Director Douglas?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-2.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Next action items are second reading, rewrite of policy 102, equal educational and employment opportunity and corresponding procedures. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. To repeal of policy 413, prohibition against discrimination, harassment, and violence, and corresponding procedures and incorporation of substantive requirements under policy 102, and second reading amendment of policy 514, bullying and hazing prohibition and corresponding procedure. General Counsel Tim Palmetier will share information.
Thank you, Chair Dawson-Walton, school board members, and Superintendent McIntyre. There are 3 policies on the agenda for second reading tonight. Policy 102, equal educational and employment opportunity. Policy 413, prohibition against discrimination, harassment, and violence. And policy 514, bullying and hazing. The first reading of these policies was held on October 19th at the regular business meeting of the school board. Exactly 4 weeks have passed since the first reading of these policies, and under school board bylaws, if approved at this meeting tonight, the policies will be modified as recommended. First for your consideration is the rewrite of policy 102. This policy has not been reviewed or revised by the board since December of 2000. The substantive provisions of this policy are mandated by requirements in various federal laws, including Title VI and Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title IX, Section 504, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the Minnesota Human Rights Act. Because this policy substantially overlaps with anti-discrimination requirements in current policy 413, and a violation of either policy would require the same type of investigation and potential corrective action, it's being recommended that policy 102 and 413 be combined as one uniform policy. In addition, the procedures that currently accompany policy 413 and expressly spell out investigation procedures for those would now accompany the rewritten policy 102. Next would be repeal of policy 413. This is a policy that was last reviewed and revised in April of 2018. The substantive provisions of this policy are specifically required by Minnesota Statute 121A03. Since all of the substantive provisions required in this policy are incorporated into policy 102, we are proposing that policy 413 be repealed. So again, essentially, we're combining the 2 policies as it stands, maintaining the substantive provisions. Last for consideration is policy 514, bullying and hazing prohibition, I should say. The policy was last reviewed and revised in October of 2017. The policy is required by Minnesota statute. The proposed revisions to the policy are largely non-substantive and are being proposed for clarity. The substantive changes to the policies are found in sections 2, B, C, and D of the proposed revisions that are attached to the board materials tonight. Section 2B is being revised to reflect the exact language that is found in the statute. The current version doesn't line up entirely accurately. Section 2C is being added to clarify that employees and other representatives of the district who engage in any hazing of a student would be in violation of the policy and would be held accountable. And finally, Section 2C is being added to clearly reflect that retaliation against any person for reporting an alleged act of bullying or hazing or retaliation for participating in an investigation of such conduct is prohibited under the policy. It's our recommendation that the board adopt the revised proposed policies as amended.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the rewrite of policy 102, equal educational and employment opportunity and corresponding procedures to include repeal of policy 413, prohibition against discrimination, harassment, and violence, and corresponding procedures incorporate of substantive requirements under policy 102?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Director Mosqueda Jones, seconded by Director Simons. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes 6-0. Is there a motion to approve the amendment to policy 514, bullying and hazing prohibition and corresponding procedure?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Director Brooks, seconded by Director Grady. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye, all opposed say nay.
Aye.
Aye.
I did that wrong. Okay, sorry. All right, final action item is gifts to the district. Is there a motion to approve gifts to the district totaling $43,518.74?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, all in favor, oh, thank you.
Can I just mention
Yes.
one thing?
Mhm.
On several of the gifts were donations of coats, mittens, gloves, those kinds of things for schools. And the homeless liaison at Park Center is currently looking for donations to give backpacks to students who are experiencing homelessness currently for over winter break. So if you're interested in that, you can contact her or you can contact me and I can connect you with her.
Okay. I don't know, who's her?
Emily.
Emily, yes, okay. Sorry. I was like, I think that you're talking about Emily, but.
Yeah.
All right, all in
Emily.
favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed say nay. Motion passes 6-0. All right, at this time, the board will be taking a brief 10-minute recess and then reconvening in the forum room where it will be a closed session. The session will be closed pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.03 for consideration of contracted days for all bargaining groups. Is there a motion to recess the regular meeting for 10 minutes and reconvene in the forum room?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Director Simon, seconded by Director Brooks. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes 6-0. Meeting is recessed at 8:58 PM. School board meeting will adjourn at the conclusion of this closed session. Good night, everyone. Thank you.